What's up, y'all? We're gonna try this on my end because I'm trying to go live with Do You Speak Geek and I can't find him. So we're gonna try this from my end and see what happens. So hopefully, if he shows up, we can make this work. This is crazy. There he is.
Holy crap.
Hi.
So it's my fault, I guess?
I don't know. I haven't had this problem before. And I don't know what to do. I said, you want to bring it to my house? So it's going to show up as live on both sides. So your people will still see. But I just
Cool.
I felt bad. I wanted to make it work. I was like, oh, damn.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, yo, this is not popping right now.
So how are you? Even though
I'm fine now.
you're doing the interview, it just happens to be here. So I'll let
Yeah, I'm fine now. Put it that way. I'm fine now. Hopefully my peeps will come through and check this out.
I think they will. They're seeing you. It looks like they're coming in now.
Cool. All right.
Do you see the chat?
Yeah, my wife's in here, so I am happy. All right.
Hi. I don't know who your wife's, what her name is, but hi.
My wife's saying so I'm happy. Good. All right. So normally how I would kick this off is ask you how your week has been so far. So how has it been so far?
Nuts, but that's kind of par for the course this time of year. It's kind of normal.
Normal for the time of year it is.
Yeah, because there's like a lot of the end of the year stuff going on and a lot of, so a lot of catching up to do, a lot of people who are remembering, oh yeah, the year is ending. So let me ask for things. So it's been kind of crazy, but not bad. Listen, I'm happy. I'm always happy when somebody, I'm humble, so I'm always happy when somebody like remembers like, oh, hey, we'd really like you to do something or work on something. So it's good though. And it's just that weird in between the holiday thing, like kind of ran out of Thanksgiving and now we're kind of, okay, get all the stuff together before Christmas, And I think it's also been strange because of the pandemic and everything like that, I was able to, it's been a really long time since I've seen my mom and I was able to see her Thanksgiving and we're trying to gear up before Omarion acts up to see her again.
I've been hearing people call it that, and it's like the funniest thing ever. It's like, oh my God, so don't touch anyone while you have this virus.
Exactly. Nice. I got that. I know that reference.
Figured you would. All right, well.
It looks like more people have showed up. Yeah, your people. Hello. Welcome this is actually Do You Speak Geeks. This is not my live, but this is how we had to make it work.
So I will just conduct myself as normal, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, blurs and nerds, freaks and geeks. This is DYSG Live. I am here chilling with the amazing Miss Karama Horne, aka the Blerd Gurl. Normally I would have a little questions box down there, so yes, right down there. So if you guys have questions for our lovely guest in her house, please be sure to drop those right there. And with her approval, we'll get to them.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I have to figure out. Yes, I will answer them as soon as I see them. Because I'm like, wait.
So,
but you have priorities. You get all the questions.
Gotcha. So we're gonna kick this thing off with the origin story. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and what it is you do.
Okay, so I am Karama Horne, aka the Blerd Gurl. I am a culture journalist and content creator, and I tell people that I'm parked at the intersection of geekdom and diversity. So I have a column over at Sci-Fi Wire where I write about indie comics primarily. And then I also have the Blerd Gurl website, and I also have a weekly Twitch show called The Blerd Gurl Live, where I interview all kinds of people, all kinds of amazing people, and that also translates into a podcast. And I've also, over the past, because I'm crazy, I decided for the month of December that I was going to post excerpts from the show every day of the month. So I actually kind of owe y'all two today because I wasn't able to get to the one last night because I went to a Matrix screening. So I couldn't get to it yesterday.
I saw that. How was it? Be honest. How was it?
It was good. I can't say anything really until the 16th. I'm not allowed to like say anything, but like I could, that's all I could do right now. Check back with me on the 16th when I'm on my social media embargo lifts, and then I can say more.
Cool. I just want to know if it was good. That's all I want to know. So when it comes to being a Blerd in media, I feel like no one is anyone until they come through you. You're kind of like our Lois Lane, you know. You seem to have this flair for keeping your finger on the cultural pulse of blerds like us, and your reach is long. The number of elite publications and productions that have featured your work is astounding and inspiring. You're a journalist, podcaster, columnist, and content creator. Now, this wasn't a question. I just want to take a moment to give you your flowers.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's strange, especially when people are like, oh my God, you've been, you just came out of nowhere. And I'm like, I've actually been doing this for a very long time, but thank you. It's funny when people say like, you're speaking for all of us. And I'm like, that's terrifying. But I try, because if I think about it like that, I will freak out. But I appreciate, I think when you run and gun and you work so hard, sometimes you forget that there are people that are really watching and looking at what you're doing. And I didn't know that until this year when I started my Patreon and when I very recently started my Discord. I just didn't realize that there's some people that just want to see you succeed. And I'm not used to that. I'm used to like, let me just go, prove to you that I'm, but there's some people that really have really helped me out. And this year I was lucky enough to sort of start building out my little team, which allows me to sleep sometimes, which is great. But I'm learning. And hi, everyone. I'm sorry if I'm not waving to everybody as fast as I should, but I'm trying.
Yeah, my peeps can roll through here and really start to bombard with the waves and say, hey guys, how you doing? But yeah, it's love though, man. I'm just glad to be able to talk to you. Absolutely. And yes, as Nami Ware would say, we definitely want to see you win.
Thank you, Nami Ware.
Absolutely. All right. So one of the foundational principles of DYSG is inclusion and enlightenment. Basically, we all speak geek. We don't all speak the same geek. Some of us speak comics, some speak D&D, some speak LARPing. I want to know, what geeks do you speak?
Comics. But I lean to indie comics because for a long time that's the only place where I really saw myself. But also anime. And I would say anime before manga because I saw anime before I read manga. I do read manga, but I will absolutely admit that I'm a visual person and I will inhale anime faster than I will read manga, but I do both. So I would say comics, anime, and manga. It's really funny because people are like, oh, we want to interview you about cosplaying. I'm like, why? I've never cosplayed. Like, and I'm not against it. It's just, I just feel like there's so many people out there that are very, very talented. Now that I know that there's a thing called classic cosplay, I will do that. Like, for instance, actually, when I was at New York Comic Con, I had on like a leather jacket and a t-shirt and jeans, and my hair was twisted out. And everybody said, "Oh, Monica Rambeau," and I'm like, "Yes, I am."
Yeah.
I will.
You can get it right.
I didn't even think about it. I'm like, absolutely, then we'll take it.
I feel like if I let my hair grow out, I'm a little portly guy. If I let my hair grow out a little bit and I put on yellow tight t-shirts and jeans, like, oh, what? Cleveland, right? Like,
oh my God. And somebody in the chat said, where can we find my Discord? My Discord right now is only open to my Twitch subscribers and my Patreon subscribers, simply because I don't have enough people in there to mod effectively. So I'm keeping the ship small and tight until I can you know, because those can blow up and be out of control. And
Yeah.
but we have a lot of fun. So if you're following my Twitch, and that's just twitch.tv/TheBlerdGurl or patreon.com/TheBlerdGurl. If you are on either of those, following either of those, you will get a link to my Discord, and we do. Well, there's a bunch of stuff in there, but lately I've been doing, especially as the year winds down, we've been doing like screenings and stuff. I am thinking of rewatching the Matrix trilogy before it drops, because one thing that I will say, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, is I think if you've never seen any of the Matrix movies, this movie is going to confuse the hell out of you. So you really need to know, you need to know the trilogy. It's gonna, otherwise you're not gonna know what's going on.
I like that, actually. I like that this is just not some standalone, one-shot, non-related to everything that has come before it. Just, we threw this together, we hope you like it.
They know what they have. Yes, Felicia Day, yes. Patreon.com/TheBlerdGurl, yes. Or twitch.tv. I guess I keep forgetting that this is not yours. We in my house. Okay, hang on.
Nah, go ahead and pin it. Pin that comment. Go ahead and pin it.
I do. I need to, because I'm like, why does anybody? So I'm gonna pin this so everybody can see that. Yeah. Thank you, Felicia Day. I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Hey Deidre, how are you? So, and thank you for all the people that are coming in. This is really Do You Speak Geeks interview with me, but we couldn't get things working right, so I just offered to host it at my house. But this is his interview.
It was
so
something going on my channel. I think I had a little too much fun last night for Blerd Day. Yeah, like oh, you don't want to see all this black greatness. Shut it down. But yeah. So we'll go ahead and move on. Now, not a lot of people can do this, but I personally have been able to identify the moment when I knew I was a blerd, nerd, geek, whatever. If you can, do you remember the moment when you realized, yeah, I'm a whole ass nerd?
Okay, I'm going to answer that, but I want to answer Suki Nakamura real quick. Suki Nakamura, okay. If you're already following me, send me a whisper in Twitch, and I'll get you the link to the Discord. Also, one of my mods is in here. I just saw Sharice. So Sharice, if you see Sukin Kanamura, please DM him and give him the information. So here's the weird thing. I've been a geek my whole life. I'm from a geek family. Like, I grew up watching, no, I'm serious. Like, we grew up watching Star Trek. Like, the whole house stopped when Star Trek was on. Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, Star Trek, all of the Stargates, and we had a family subscription to Crunchyroll. Like, no one knew what I was talking about. Wow. Now, but what's very interesting is my black family, we were in the middle of a white neighborhood. So I hung out with my family. That's just, so I didn't know I was a geek until I got to college, because I was so busy being the one black person everywhere, or the one black girl. I didn't know that geekdom was weird until I got to college, and I'm talking to brothers and sisters, and I'm like, yo, so Bleach though, and they were like, what? What's a Ghost in the Shell? No idea what I'm talking about. And I'm like, oh, so that's the weird part? All right. So I didn't know. Yeah, I was practically an adult when I realized, like, oh, I'm weird. Okay. Because no, I'm serious. Like, my mother would watch, like, and I also grew up, because my mother's not from this country. She's from Bermuda. So it's like, we grew up watching sort of international television. So she would watch British shows, and, there'd be Doctor Who in there and things like that for my dad. But then there was definitely, she would watch Indian Bollywood movies, and of course, like I said, Crunchyroll. So she was watching like Korean dramas and stuff. Like, none of this is strange. Like, and people have seen me on Twitter sometimes joking, because my mom will hit me up and she'll be talking about like something she saw on The Voice, and I have to ask her which country, because it's not our country. She'll be like, oh, this is Voice Korea. I'm like, I wouldn't know, mommy, because I'm not on the same cable subscription. What are you doing? So I just grew up, when people say they can't watch subtitles, I'm like, so how do you watch international movies? I don't understand. Like, and they're like, oh, well, we don't. I'm like, okay. Like, I remember when but but when it got to Adult Swim, a lot of people were like, oh, let me tell you about this new show, Naruto. And I'm like,
not new to me.
like, because I live in New York, and so you could go get the DVDs and the box sets and all that kind of stuff. And so when it became mainstream again, there was a leap in the 90s, but then there was a bigger leap, I think, last year in the middle of the pandemic when people just sat down and just started absorbing it. And all these people are now like, I'm a weeb. And I'm like, wow, we didn't call ourselves that back in the day, but
That's
so
cool.
It's really interesting. So I never didn't know I was always a nerd. I never knew it was strange to be one until I got to college, because I was so busy, dealing with like racism and misogyny that I was like, oh, okay. So the geek, all right. So, the concept of calling myself a blerd, though, that didn't happen until 2014, 2013, maybe. And it was sort of a call out to other people in the geek community on Facebook. There was no Twitter then, so Facebook and message boards and things like that. It was a way. So if somebody called themselves a blerd, you were like, okay, right. Must be. We don't talk about her anymore, but so like it was a way to call out to each other, like, yo, so you say you're a blerd. What are you into? So it was like, are you an otaku? Are you this? Are you that? What are you into? And so that was how we would find each other. Now it really does mean something different. And so I tell people, just as many words evolve. And listen, any word that makes it to the mainstream is going to have a completely different meaning. So yeah, I've run into people who've been like, oh yeah, I don't associate myself as a blerd because they're misogynist, they're this, they're that. And I'm like, I'm very sorry you went through that, but that's not how it was back in the day. And I've also spoken to people who've been like, yeah, I don't call myself a blerd. I don't think I have to differentiate myself from any other geeks. And I usually say, you're welcome. I'm glad you don't have to do that anymore, because when we were doing it, we couldn't find each other. Like,
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we're seeing all this diversity now. But so it wasn't, when I first started calling myself the term. So I tell people all the time, if you don't want to call yourself a blerd, don't. I'm not going to argue with that. Let's talk about the comics. Let's talk about the anime. Let's talk about the manga. Let's talk about what you're into. I'm not going to argue with you over what your designation is. I'm going to call you by your name,
That's what's up. Yeah, a lot of people have evolved in a sense of being accepted more so for what we like nowadays, as opposed to how it was back in the day. Because back in the day, the corner where your blackness and your nerdiness met was never ever quite often accepted from both sides. Because a lot of times, me growing up, I know that I was often too nerdy for my black friends, too black for my white friends. Yep. And that's where sometimes I didn't realize that those corners could actually meet until I started getting older and meeting other people. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, you look like me and you like what I like also. I have found my tribe. What's this tribe called? Blerds? Yes. Put that right here.
You're like, I got it. Right. And the other thing I have to explain to people is the way a lot of black folks come into comics and geekdom is very different than white folks. And I've said this on other shows. Like, I talk to so many white guys like, oh yeah, I spent my childhood at the comic book shop. And I'm like, well, good for you. We didn't have one. Like, I mean, I grew up and the funny thing is, I grew up in the suburbs. I didn't grow up in the hood, but they're just going to a comic book shop was not something. My father was from down south. My mother's from an island. Sitting, I'm talking about like, drop me off at the comic book shop. They were like, are you crazy? Where's your homework? Like, that was not a thing. So most of us got in from, and like I said, we would watch a lot of stuff online, and then there was movies, and then there was also cartoons. So there was a lot of, X-Men, of course, Batman, Batman the Animated Series, and then all of the other little shows that popped up, like Saturday mornings and stuff like that. Yeah. Even Transformers and things like that. Like, a lot of people, they realize, like, a lot of these shows were created to sell toys. We didn't care about this. I mean, I cared about the toys, but I was more interested in the animation. I would just take my brother's toys because that's how that worked. I was the only girl, so. And so I think a lot of people of color get in differently, and we stay in for different reasons. We'll stay in because I remember talking to Jakara Smith, who had no idea that there was a Sailor Moon whole series, because she had just seen the movies, and so she just got all the movies and just watched them over and over and over again. Because when we get in, we get something that we like, and we just play it, you know, until we can't play it anymore, because we don't get access to the, like, my mother wasn't gonna go out and buy comics every week, every month. She would look at me like I was crazy. You know, so, and that's how a lot of people got into geekdom, I think, you know, coming up. And then also wasn't the same geekdom. Like, I knew people who did not, hated anime. I don't like it. It's not in English. I don't know who these little people are. No, but they were all into comics, you know? And then Milestone did a lot for, I think that Milestone did a lot for Black geekdom in terms of it gave us, I don't want to say, it gave us validation, I guess, to a certain extent. I'm not quite sure if it gave Black women validation, but it gave Black geeks in general validation. But you also have to remember, at that time, we weren't even looking at, you know, even women in rap and women in hip hop and women in stuff. That was, you know, when Milestone was coming out with their comics, we were still listening to things like Queen Latifah and stuff like that. So a lot of the conversations that we're having about diversity now, people are like, well, why wasn't it diverse then? We were just so happy to be there and to have something that was our own, that resonated, that I think we just weren't asking those questions. Now, you know, it's evolved as everything does.
That's what's up. Yeah, definitely. The kicker there is to actually make sure that everyone feels represented and involved in whatever culture that there is out there. As far as you're still in toys, though, I mean, did you take like the He-Man and make them like kiss She-Ra, or did you make like He-Man?
Oh no, I didn't have any. Or... Yeah, no, but see, here's the problem, and this is the funny thing, because we have relatives that would give me. There's something I didn't explain. My brothers are twins. So they're younger than me, and they're both boys, and they're twins. So when people would give me dolls, I was like, I've got a whole human right here. What do I need a doll for? Like, I didn't get the concept of playing with a doll because I literally had a baby brother. Take my pick. My mother had one, and I had the other, and you just couldn't convince me that one of them wasn't mine until they got into my stuff, and then I wanted to send them back for a full refund because I didn't like them. But it was just... so it was, I actually didn't play with dolls because I didn't get the concept, because I had an entire human. I liked mechs. I liked like that. I would take their Hess truck. I would take the Transformers. I would take they were very into video games. I didn't get into video games till later. They were very much into video games. But when I say into video games, I mean, I'm about to date myself. We would have games that were not region free, and we would get a region free unit to play games. So they were playing like Macross from Japan. And I'm like Macross Plus and things like that. And I'm sneaking in, playing when I'm not playing and stuff like that. So because the whole reason was like, why didn't you play with them? I didn't play with them because they're my brothers. Ew. That's, you know, that's just how it was. Like, now we would, you know, battle each other. But like then it was like, ew, boy germs. So it was, I would take the stuff. I liked mechs. I liked putting things together. And they would take computers apart too. They would get in trouble regularly for taking apart the television, but that's all different story. Wow. It's just, so that's what I'm saying. We were all very strange children. We didn't sneak out. Our concept of a good evening was like taking apart the television set. Who's going to get caught? Like, that's, you know, wow. We were weird. We didn't know it until we started seeing other people. And then it was like, oh, wow, we are really weird. Y'all don't do that? Okay.
That's funny. That is funny, man. To have been growing up in your house, that would have been interesting to see. Very interesting to see. And you took me back with the whole mods. That took me back. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, and they would reset up. Yeah, they would reset up their controllers and things like the Dreamcast. And I don't know how to do this. I could play them, but I couldn't. And it's funny because we were so at odds with each other growing up. They laugh at what I do now. They were like, you hated what we were doing. I was like, no, I hated you. I hate you doing. I just hated you because you were my brothers, and that's my job.
That is funny. That is funny.
Yes, Dre from Crazy World Creations, taking the TV apart was the quickest way to get a whooping. Yes. Yes, it was.
I can imagine so. You know, with you guys all piling around the TV for Star Trek, like, hey, it's not cutting on. Who did it? I can imagine that. Wow. Take it from the TV. Never done that before. I have to try it one day.
They would take apart all kinds of things because they were just really into it. They're both into tech now, but yeah, it was really, really funny. But then they would totally mod out all of their consoles. And we were, I mean, honestly, obviously back then everybody had a console. There wasn't really PC gaming back then.
Right.
But yeah, it was fascinating. It was really, really funny. And so now, but to this day, we have a family Crunchyroll account. In fact, my brother just hit me up because he was like, who forgot to pay? Because I was just in the middle of Demon Slayer and everything stopped. So who forgot to pay?
Oh, wow. That's what's up. I love that concept. Whole family full of nerds. That needs to be a TV show.
Yes. Hey, PD Beats. What's up, PD Beats? How are you? Yes, I just saw you. I just saw him at a press junket. We can't say what press junket yet, but yay!
What's going on, people? DYSG Live. I am in the house of Miss Karama Horne, the Blerd Gurl.
This is actually, yes, this is a Do You Speak Geeks actually takeover of the Blerd Gurl Live. We're just doing it this way because we get tech working. Yes, that's what it is.
Came in here and kicked up my feet like Rick James. Nice place. Put my feet up on your couch. The Blerd Gurl.
Yes.
The name has spanned across many lanes of media, but take me back to where it began. How did the Blerd Gurl get started?
Well, there's two different stories. One story is like when I conceptualized the idea, and then the other story is like where the name came from. So, your followers probably don't know this, but I'm a stroke survivor. So about 8 years ago, and I'm okay now, but I had to learn how to. I was in the hospital. Like it was literally, in fact, December 20th is my stroke anniversary. The left side of my body shut down. I had to learn how to walk again, use my hand again. The whole left side wasn't working, and I was in rehab and all those other kind of things. But for years, I worked as an editor and graphic artist for TV and things like that. So that was my day job. I happened to be in Philadelphia wrapping up a job when all of this happened, and it turned out that I had several mini strokes, and it was just messing up my balance, the whole 9 yards. So I spent all of Christmas and New Year's about 7-8 years ago in the hospital. And I have close friends who would send me comics and things like that. And I remember saying, if I get out of this, because I was working on I was cutting promos for Discovery Channel. And I remember thinking I am not going to die working on Naked and Afraid. That is not going on my epitaph. That is not what I want to go out working on. And I remember saying, if I can get out of here and I can do something that not only helps people, but also is fun, like something within geekdom, I will do it. And so it took me a very long time to sort of get back on my feet. I almost lost my house. There's all kinds of things that happened. That's a whole book in and of itself. But I'm the concept of geekdom and talking about indie comics and knowing that I wanted to talk about marginalized voices and characters in indie comics, that I knew. So I remember getting out of the hospital and I started a Tumblr. Now, the Tumblr's original name was actually Derpy Girl, because I understood a derp to be somebody who was just clumsy or whatever. But I got schooled real quick that there was a whole crew of people on 4chan that were basically using the term to mean something else, which was going against people, it was a derogatory term for people who are mentally disabled. And I was like, oh, we're not doing that. And so I changed it to the Blerd Gurl. And I'd actually asked around the geek community, do enough people use this term that it would make sense if I called myself this? Because this is a time that you didn't use your actual government name on social media. Now they tell you, use your real name, let everybody know who you are. And the funny thing about it, though, was I had written an article the night before I made the switch over called 25 Reasons Why You Don't Make Any Money at Comic-Con, that blew up on Tumblr. And so when I changed the name over, I had to basically do a thing where I forwarded the DNS so that I wouldn't lose the article. I wouldn't lose the followers. So after that, Regine remembers when I was Derpy Girl, right? So I became the Blerd Girl kind of overnight, and then my Tumblr was still dedicated to Black comic artists and Black characters. There were still, people were just beginning to have this conversation back in 2015-ish, 2014-ish, about diversity in comics. And I was saying, okay, but y'all keep looking at Marvel and DC, and there's a whole bunch of comics over here that have Black and brown characters. And I was introducing people to Milestone. I was introducing people to even comics, indie comics, and as well as characters inside of mainstream comics. Like, I did a whole piece about Maya Lopez and being Echo and stuff. And people thought I was making her up. And I can't tell you how happy I am to see Echo in Hawkeye right now.
Right.
Because I was like yelling about her years ago. So that's kind of what I did. I would also highlight Black artists and writers that I found out that were also Black, saying like, we hear, but y'all aren't supporting them because you don't know they're Black. So let's start supporting some of the people that already exist. And so that's how I switched it over to WordPress, and that's sort of how Blerd Gurl was born.
Cool. Big fan of the independent comic scene. A lot of creators who I've got to speak with, maybe not in a forum such as what we're doing right here now, but a lot of people who I talk to, ABH Comics, of course, Skeeky Ayers and Concrete Comics and CNS Comics, great people over there, great creators, people who I really, really hope one day flourish and make tons of money and also tons of experience for young readers out there, to just show them that there are avenues for their kinds of stories, for characters and heroes and even villains that look like them. But definitely, as a fellow Blerd, thank you for spotlighting that early on in your career. It's definitely something that we definitely need more of. Absolutely.
Now I have to ask you this, because this is your show. We just have to be doing it here. Do I answer questions at the end of the show or as we go? How do you do this?
Normally, I hit that little questions box down there to see who has questions in there.
Okay.
Sometimes
there are some
crazy.
here, but I didn't want to interrupt you.
Okay. Now, some of them can get crazy sometimes. So if you see something there that doesn't look too hot, just ignore it and keep on going. But if it's something that you want to answer, absolutely hit that button and let's see what we got.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to combine Felicia Day has several questions.
Okay.
How are you integrating technology into your platform to amplify your reach? Schedule. 99 times out of 10, I am actually only live on social media typing as me about an hour a day.
Wow.
The rest is all schedule. And the other thing I'm doing, like I said, I have a show that I do on Twitch. Now it's twice a week, but Tuesday nights is the interview thing. Thursday morning is my I play indie games and we just chill. It's just like a Thursday morning chill stream.
Right.
And a lot of people ask me like, why are you doing Twitch and not YouTube or whatever? And it's not that I don't want to go do YouTube. It's just that there were people that asked me to be a part of their show on Twitch first. There's a group called OSNYC. They're actually based here in New York. They have a place. They're a gaming outlet. You can actually go there and play games live in this space. It's an awesome space.
Wow.
But they had to shut down for COVID. So they brought all their stuff and their employees to Twitch. And they're verified the whole 9 yards. And so they were looking for different content. And the crew, there's just, I ended up basically doing a show, starting the Blerd Gurl Live over there. And it was just a concept. They were trying to get into that talk show, just chatting vertical. And I'm like, well, I got a show and I can do interviews. And I'm like, all right, let's see what you got. And like, my first guest was April Rain and my second guest was Orlando Jones. And they were like, wait, who are you? Hang on. And I'm like, I told you I had people. They're like, well, yeah, everybody says that, but what are you doing? And I was like, so, because it was the pandemic, there was a lot of people that had time in their hands, and I just called in a bunch of favors and stuff. And the thing that I liked about Twitch that YouTube didn't do, but they do now, is Twitch allowed you to clip very easily, and they also allowed you to highlight and just grab, like, make chunks of things of video on the platform without even downloading very easily. YouTube now allows you to do a version of that, but Twitch lets you do it quickly. So I was able to grab clips, download them, just throw them up on social, or caption them and throw them up on social. Highlights, I could just take the interview, download it, throw it up on YouTube. So, like, that's the kind of thing I'm doing. That's the kind of technology I use. I'm all about scheduling and repurposing. I will take one interview and I will use that interview in about 15 different ways. I'll have the audio be up on a podcast. I'll have not even the entire video. I'll have the entire video up on YouTube, but nobody sits there watching a YouTube that's not live for 2 hours anymore. So I'll take the interview and break it up into pieces, and I'll take this 7-minute thing that Peter Ramsey said about Miles Morales, and I will throw it up on YouTube, or this 10 minutes that Orlando Jones said about this concept, and throw it up on Instagram. So it's not about, what I have learned is that, because I used to try and write these books every day on the Blerd Gurl. I would, I'm going to write this 1,000-word, 1,200-word post. Nobody cares. They're not reading either. Mm-hmm. So the way I turned it around is I get paid now to write the 1,200 words, and all the other stuff that I do for myself is video, is audio, So hopefully that sort of answers one of the questions that was in there. But I think that the way I kind of got started is, and it's funny, it's not that when people go like, oh, I want to do exactly what you did to get to where you are. No, you don't. And I'll tell you why. You can't do it anymore. Because social media is constantly changing. If you do exactly what I do, you might not be that successful, because everything is different now. A, B, you're different. Be better. Be better than what I'm doing. So the way I got in was, like I said, I was an editor and did graphic design first.
Okay.
So I was a freelance editor in New York, and I was editing promos. I did a lot for A&E and things like that. And when I say promos, those are the things that come up and go like, let's see, who did we do? We did a lot of Royal Pains and Suits and a lot of those A&E shows, So, on the next episode of, I don't know, Suits,
Burn Notice.
Right. On the next episode of Burn Notice, so-and-so gets in trouble with this and he gets fired, and Natasha might not make it to the end, and then all the little, it was regular work, because every week there's a show. So they would give you 3 or 4 shows at a time, and there'd be a producer with a script, and they'd have the script, and you'd literally have to cut what it is, put the sound effects in it, and do everything it takes to get it on air. So I was cutting commercials years ago, and then I just switched over to promos because I wanted to get out of the just for TV kind of space. And so I was freelancing at a post-production house. They call that post-production here in New York, called Black Spot, and not black owned, but called Black Spot. And they got a contract with Sci-Fi to go to San Diego Comic-Con in 2017. And they were like, do we know anybody here that knows anything about comics? And like, everybody looked at me, like my assistant, everybody, they were like, have you ever had a conversation with Karama ever? Because, but in true fashion, right, the bosses are like, we don't know anybody, and I was like, I'm right here. So I went with a team of about 5 other dudes to San Diego Comic-Con 2017, and you didn't see me because I was at the hotel next door at the Sheraton, where they would just take over banks of rooms and fill it with gear. There was a stage over here and makeup over there, and we had our editing bays that were all set up in a conference room, and that's where I would spend my days. So what happened was, while I was there, when you have freelance jobs like this, many times networks will just bring in people from all over the place. You just got to get people to get the work done. So they had people in there that didn't know what they were looking at. So I would hear like, okay, tell me what cartoon, I don't recognize this Disney character. It's like, that's not Disney, that's Naruto. Why are you here? And then, tell me who the old guy is on the screen. It's like, that's Peter Capaldi. This is the Doctor Who segment. Why don't you know this? So I sort of became a de facto, like, sort of assistant producer because so many people didn't know what they were looking at, and they didn't have that many people who were familiar with the content. They had people who knew production and knew post and knew graphics, but they didn't know who they were looking at. So that weekend I was just made such an impression that they were like, have you ever thought of hosting a show? And I'm like, every day of the week, because I have a site and I do a thing. So my Blerd Gurl life was separate from my editing life. No one really knew on the editing side that I was into this, except for a few people who were close to me and my assistant, because we were both anime geeks and comic book geeks, and we would talk about it all the time. So I got a chance to pitch. They asked me if I would pitch a show, a news related show for them. I pitched 3. I got 1, and then they turned it into an interstitial, which means it would come on in between shows. So some of you might remember seeing me on screen in between at like Z Nation and stuff on Sci-Fi, because we'd have these little interstitials that were called Sci-Fi Wire News, and we would come on and go, hey, did you hear that such and such happened or whatever? And it's what people do on YouTube now, but I could not convince this company to go on YouTube. They were like, no, we're a network. We need to be on TV. And I'm like, the planet is on YouTube, but okay. And so I was executive producer of the show. They had another host named Jackie Jennings, who still hosts for them. And when I did my contract, I wrote in my contract that when Jackie wasn't available, I would be the host. And they were like, that's fine, because they never thought she wouldn't be there. Well, there was a situation where she couldn't be there for a month. So guess who got to be on TV? And they couldn't do anything about it. They didn't want to put me on TV, but they couldn't do anything about it because it was in the contract. So they were like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. And I was like, I'm the one who has to hire hair and makeup. I'll see y'all in the morning. So I'm saying all that to say that I really relate really well to the Black Lady Sketch Show, that sister that goes undercover by just being there and nobody ever sees her. That's been me, my entire career. Right. So everything I've gotten, I'm always in the room. But until very recently, nobody knew who the hell I was and nobody saw me.
Wow.
I would be at Sci-Fi and I got a podcast at Sci-Fi. I was in the studio for like 30 minutes before they realized that I was the new co-host. Nobody ever would see me. So, and then I'm in Sci-Fi. I'm in NBC Studios at Rock Center. So after the podcast, I would go up to the floor, and then I would see the producers, and I would see different people. There were different shows and things like that, and I would just strike up a conversation. By the end of the conversation, they'd be like, who was that? But I already have your contact information. I'll let you know. So that I grew because nobody, Black women aren't considered. I remember even doing red carpets. The first red carpet I did, and this is actually a big thing, I quote unquote blew up in 2018 because the 2018 started with Black Panther and ended with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and in between was Black Lightning and like the 3rd season of Luke Cage. 2nd season rather of Luke Cage, because Luke Cage had come out before. So we were getting into like, all of the comic book stuff, and they were like, we need Black people who know comics. And I'm like,
once again.
But what the other thing that I did, though, I didn't just kind of show up and go, hey, I'm here. When I decided that I wanted to do this more often or do this regularly, I remember I was saying on the Blerd Gurl on the website, I would go and I would interview people. I would interview comic book creators. I've never met a indie comic book writer or artist who doesn't want to tell you about what they're doing because they want people to buy it.
Absolutely.
So I would go and I would find them. And I remember talking to David Walker. He didn't know who the hell I was. And we were like talking about Luke Cage, and I was excited. He was so excited that anybody knew who he was or like the last 3 issues that he'd written. So I talked to him. And then what I did was I live in New York. So I would buy tickets to Comic-Con, New York Comic-Con, and I would go to the comic book conventions in Harlem and things like that. And I would just show up with a camera and ask questions. I would interview people and I would get footage and I would come back and I would cut it because I was an editor. So I knew how to cut it. I needed footage. Right. So I would just find people to talk to, and then I started the podcast that way. I started just talking to people, or if there was video that I didn't like the way the video looked, but the audio was really good, it would be a podcast. I was making it up as I went along, but I knew I needed content because I might not be that great with a camera, but I knew I could edit. So I just used what I had to put graphics and stuff. And that's how I started building things up. I started interviewing people about comics, interviewing people about shows. The other thing that I would do is I would go on IMDb, I got an IMDb Pro account, and then I would see whose people's agents were, people would be tagging people on Twitter and social media. I knew, because from being behind the scenes, half of them don't run their own accounts. Like, they'll show up occasionally, but they're not on there all the time. They got assistants, they got managers and stuff. So I would go and find the managers. And I would say, hey, I'd like to interview them for my XYZ podcast. You might have seen me doing such and such for Sci-Fi. Now, the interview was not for Sci-Fi, but I could legally put Sci-Fi in my email because I would say, I had done something for them. So I would get people's attention, but I wouldn't always get the star. I would go for the show director, the showrunner. I would go for the co-star. I would go for people that people weren't talking to because they were easier to get. Like, right. Everybody talks to the star of the show, just like everybody talks to the comic book artist. I'm sorry, everybody talks to the comic book writer. They don't talk to the artist. They don't talk to the colorist. But right. I would find these people. Yeah. Right. So I would find these people to talk to, and then I'm in, because then I'll have somebody retweeting me from the network, and they're like, well, who is this chick? But I remember that's how I actually got in at, Star Trek was two things. One, I met David Ajala years ago when I got to host a panel for Sci-Fi about a show he was in, and I can't remember the name of the show right now. It'll come to me. But it was a show that only lasted one season, and Night Flyers. And it was based on a George R.R. Martin book. And we just stayed friends. And then when he got Manchester Black, I was like, yo. And then he happened to be he's good friends with some of the cast of Black Lightning. And I was at a Black Lightning press thing. And I'm like, why are you here? And he was announcing to his friends that he had gotten the role on Star Trek. Now, I couldn't say anything. It was a article, but so, and I was able to reach out and actually just keep some of these connections because I was there. I just happened to be in the room these conversations were happening. So when David got to do this show, I was able to go to David and say, I want to interview you for my podcast. CBS was like, who is this woman? He's like, doesn't matter. I'm doing it. So like that's how some of my stuff is coming on. It looks like, oh, she knows everybody. No, I know some people. Then the CBS, then all of that led to me interviewing other people on the show. And Hanalei Culpepper, I was like, is nobody going to talk about the fact that Hanalei Culpepper is the first Black woman to ever direct a Star Trek show ever? Are we not going to talk about that? And then all of a sudden CBS was in my inbox. Like, would you like to have a conversation? I'm like, I would say so. So even the current showrunner, I kept looking at Star Trek Discovery, and I'm trying to make sure I'm saying, ooh, gotta type this in properly. The Star Trek Discovery showrunner, everyone talks to Alex Kurtzman, and he's a lovely person. But I kept seeing this name. I'm like, oh, Tunji Ocean Sunmi. That's a Yoruba name. Let me find this dude. And he literally has showrun and directed almost every single episode of Star Trek Discovery. Nobody talks to him. They all talk to Alex Kurtzman. Because what I realized was inside of geekdom, even in Hollywood, they're only they'll put us on screen, but they're not talking to any of us behind the scenes. So I started talking to everybody, costume designers, assist ADs, gaffers, all kinds of people, just so I would get in with the show. And nobody cared if the costume designer or the sci-fi guy, the graphic designer was talking. I didn't care. So that's sort of like how I kind of made my way in. And then when it came to some of the other stuff I would do in terms of live stages and stuff like that, most of that came out of Sci-Fi. So I got a lot of red carpets through them, and they gave me the Black Panther red carpet. And I came back to them and I said, this has been a wonderful opportunity, but if this is the only opportunity I get with you, I'll drag you on Twitter myself.
Wow.
So what people, you won't see me dragging people on Twitter that often, but people aren't ready. Here, we're going to have a conversation. So I am not afraid of face-to-face conversations. Most people want to stay behind a keyboard. I'll bring the keyboard and the computer with me and go, why were we saying this? What's the problem? People aren't ready for that. So a lot of what I've been able to do is one of the reasons why I went to Twitch and one of the reasons why I do most of the stuff, if I see everybody doing something, I'm probably not going to do it. There's no reason for me to There's no reason for me to cover the same thing 9,000 other people are covering, which is why I've always stayed in my niche. I've had people ask me, like, because Netflix and all these other people will say, why don't you cover this show? Why don't you cover that show? It has Black people in it. And I'm like, you don't even understand my brand if you think it's just about Black people. My brand is genre programming for Black and brown people. So that genre means comics, anime, manga, if it's sci-fi, horror, supernatural, fantasy, if there's some brown people in it or there's some representation in there, I am your person. So staying in that niche has always done me really well. And it really was big for me in 2020 too, when people were like, oh, we need to find people who talk about comics and diverse stuff. And it's like, really? And that's why I said, like, that door is closing. Like, all those little black boxes were cute, but who's still standing? There's a lot of us who have spreadsheets, and we see who's been hiring, and we see who's actually making some strides and some moves. Not everybody did.
Wow.
So, oh God, okay, there's a bunch of questions, and I haven't answered them. Do you have another question for me while I'm looking?
Yes, I have plenty. Okay. We can go on. So, in your about section, you stated that you are fueled by coffee and comics.
Yes.
Number one, that immediately makes us best friends. Just so you know. And two, what's in the Blerd Gurl's coffee cup?
Bustelo, all day.
Got you.
Cafe con leche all day. And people go, wow, Bustelo's strong. I'm like, your point? You can't handle Bustelo. And when I say Bustelo, I mean New York Bustelo. People from New York and Miami know exactly what I'm talking about. Bustelo you will see sounds if you've never had that level of caffeine before. Bustelo stays in the coffee cup. But I will tell you right now, but the Blerd Gurl is looking for a coffee sponsorship. So if you would like to fuel my coffee habit, I will email me at karama@theblerdgurl.com. We will make that happen. Because I am never gonna turn down a cup of coffee.
Man, you give me a cup of coffee and a comic I've never read yet, I am in bliss.
I will say this though. I did at Comic-Con last year. I did get at Death Wish coffee. No, I'm sorry, 2019. See, 2020, 2021 are like one big long year. I got a bag
downstairs.
So Death Wish coffee is next level. It'll hit you. I don't want to say it's stronger than Bustelo, but it can be if you don't brew it right. I wasn't ready.
That's me. You got to put it on the lower drip.
Yes.
Just seep.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Cholula. Yes, Cafe Bustelo hits in the morning. Yes, on an empty stomach though, you got to be careful because it'll bring up everything you had last night. It'll clean you out. But yeah.
What's up. Now, for those who elect to only observe the surface, they would say your content has a limited audience. They would see that as a handicap. However, there is an extreme importance of journalism and content creation to not only know your audience, but to speak with them. What retort do you have for those who may say your content is too Black?
You know what's hilarious to me? Is that's never been said to me. I've had Black people tell me my content isn't Black enough.
Wow.
And it's hilarious to me. So I saw that when you said you would ask that question. I was thinking, ain't nobody ever told me that my content was too Black. I've had Black people say, why did you cover more Black stuff? And I think the confusion is, because here's the thing, I run the Blerd Gurl from two perspectives. So I am the Blerd Gurl, like the talent that is out in front doing things as me, but also my brand, my company, Talent Creative, which is basically also housing sort of the behind the scenes of the Blerd Gurl. I am regularly getting people, trying to get people places and pitched, and like if it's something that's not my wheelhouse, I will give people names. If it's something that I can't do, I will usually, almost always, suggest 4 other people that I know are ready, that can do something, that are not me, because I truly believe that a rising tide raises all boats. But not everybody's ready. And when I say ready, like I've literally said to people, like, listen, so-and-so is going to do a piece on you. Is your store up and ready? And they'll be like, yeah, no, I haven't done it yet, but I appreciate the shout out. I'm like, this isn't a shout out. If they run this article, you are going to get bombarded. Where is your store? And people think I'm playing. And I'm like, you know what I mean? So not everybody is necessarily like, and I'm not saying not everybody is worthy. Everybody's worthy, but not everybody's always ready. Because exactly. And what some of the highlights look like are not what people think. The number one problem I have with people, especially people that I coach and I talk to, is I need you to A, get off of Facebook, B, stop worrying about what the person that you think is the most important or your biggest competition thinks. There is somebody right now that is sitting in Japan that loves your stuff but doesn't know how to buy it. This is the internet. Stop looking across the street. Black people and Black culture is like hitting all over the world, but our scope is so tiny. Like that's why sometimes I cover stuff all the time from like Australia and New Zealand and England and other places, because I'll find it and it's fantastic. And people are like, oh, like you can cover England, but you can't cover Brooklyn. I'm like, that's not true. But you just showed up today and just decided to choose violence. Like, okay, so it's just, I think it's a really interesting thing when I get that question, because my column over at Sci-Fi is not called the BIPOC indie comics. It's not, and I was very clear on that. I said it's going to be very diverse, because that is how I function. I have that, and I don't do any more panels anymore about why Black people should be in a space or why we need more diversity. I don't do that anymore. You know it. You know it's important. Let's talk about why you're not doing it. Or let's talk about what we need to do to make it more diverse, or why you're so uncomfortable doing it on your own. That's a conversation. But yeah, so some people have said, like, has anybody ever told you that there's a lot of Black comics in your column? I'm like, no, imagine that. So, and I've had people ask me, like, well, we want to make sure the panel that you're doing is diverse, and there's nothing that says diversity in the topic, and but I said, trust me, when you get the headshots, you'll know it's diverse, because that's my type of diversity. I want to talk about superhero science with a bunch of Black scientists, or Black and brown, and like, I don't care, like, but right. That's diversity. My diversity is I show up and it's diverse. You'll get it. I'm not going to have a conversation in lip service, and that's the difference. So, and that's the conversation. And here's the other thing. I've also had that on the flip side. I've been on black folks panels that are all Black men and me. And you still see me?
Yes.
Because that scared me there real quick. All black folks and me. You know what? And I'm going to have to take this. I'll take these headphones out so I can make sure that I stay plugged in. Lose you. You still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So it's gonna be on speakerphone, so we can say keep the phone charged.
Right.
But yeah, I've had panels where it's all Black men and me, and I'm like, this needs to be more diverse, and they're like, it is diverse. It's Black people. I'm like, that's not diverse. Just say it's a Black panel. We can say that now. It's a Black folks comic book panel or whatever. And I was on a panel like that once, and I said, no, you're calling it diverse. You don't have anybody Asian. You don't have any other women besides me. You don't have any LGBTQ representation here. This isn't diverse. This is Black people. Call it Black people. They didn't believe me. And then at the end of the panel, first question we got was a Southeast Asian chick that was cosplaying as Kamala Khan. Like, this is great, but can it be more diverse next time? I was like,
try to tell you.
We need to stop fooling ourselves that just because we're in the room, it's diverse. If you want true diversity in the geek space, you need sisters. You need LGBTQ representation. You need somebody who's trans. You need, if you're not, stop saying that you're diverse. Say what you are. We are Black men talking about a thing, or we are Black women talking about a thing. You know, the diversity conversation is not a term we use amongst ourselves. It's a term that's used for mainstream.
Wow. Free game. Absolutely appreciate that. Now, what's a common popular geek nerd opinion you don't subscribe to? Like, for example, some people may say Thor Dark World was the worst MCU movie of all time, and then some people disagree with that.
I disagree with that because Iron Man 3 was the worst. No, I'm kidding. The way
a little ouch. A little ouch. Okay.
Here's the thing. I don't subscribe to anything that says you're not a real nerd or you're not a real blerd, fill in the blank. I don't.
Okay.
That's because you're negating a whole group of people. Also, there's a whole bunch of Black folks that did not feel comfortable in their geekdom until Black Panther came out.
This is true.
And you sit up and you tell them, you're not a real nerd. You don't deserve to be here because you don't know XYZ. You don't know Killmonger's real name. You don't know, T'Chaka's daddy's name. You don't know. That's not fair. They're coming in because they're excited and they want to join in this geekdom too. That's not fair. That's not fair. And I tell people also, for my brand is very much, it's taken me years to figure this out because I don't have the bandwidth to be a news site. So I can be dropping things every 15 minutes. I can do that more on social media, but I can't do that on my site. I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the people. It's me.
Gotcha.
So my thing is more of a curator. This is what I'm into. This is what I'm really interested in. This is what I think you should check out. If you want like the daily hits and things like that, you got to be in Patreon or something because I ain't got time. Or on Twitter. Like I'll give you my, quick bites or whatever on Twitter. But the people that follow me, the people that are sort of my tribe are folks that like, I'm really interested in this, but I got a job. So I just need you to tell me what I'm going to watch on the weekends. Because, I admire your opinion or I like your ideas and stuff like that. But I ain't got time to sit through 17 seasons of this if it's crap, So I'll be like, okay, so Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yes, I did like it. Do not start watching the show before season 1, episode 7, though. Because they had a lot of exposition. And get out before the last season. So things like that. And then also having interesting discussions with people that you already know. So, for instance, N.K. Jemisin. Everybody knows N.K. Jemisin is award-winning science fiction author. If you don't, you should. And she, first human being to win the Hugo Awards 3 years in a row. Not until she got on my show did I know she played Skyrim and played Cheese Skyrim. She doesn't play Skyrim like the rest of us. All she does is collect wheels of cheese and put them in a house. I swear, I'm not making this up. It's on my YouTube channel. It's hilarious. So, like, I
saw that. I
love those really interesting moments, like regular people who are like, "Oh my God, I'm a huge Expanse fan. Find me when you watch the series or something." And I'm like, who knew? Like, there's a comic book, a pretty good British comic book creator who started following me because I was writing about Expanse, and he's like, I need you to understand. Like, when I followed him, he DM'd me immediately. He's like, I need you to understand how much I love this show. And you're like the only person I can talk to. So every now and then, I'm going to DM you because no one else understands. I'm like, okay. But there are people that geek out about one thing, and then they get yelled at, or afraid to talk about it on social because they think they're going to get dragged or whatever. And I mean, I block people on a regular basis. You just wanted to come to fight, and you wanted the number one thing that people need to learn on Twitter is that you do not have to accept every invitation to every argument that you're invited to. Some days I'm like, yeah, I gotta go. You just want to hate.
Definitely use that block
hate.
button.
Yeah.
Definitely use that block button, people. Even if you're not a content creator, that block button can be your saving grace and be the key to you having a good day.
Listen,
absolutely.
There's also a block app. There's an app called Block Party, and you can put in language, and if someone keeps calling you a particular name, you can put it in there, and you will never see those tweets. So there's people that are yelling into the void at me every single day, and I never see it.
That's what's up.
You can do the same thing on. You can do the same thing on Discord. You do the same thing on Twitch. You just put it. There's places for it. You put in all the nasty words that you don't want to see, and people can be writing full books in your comments, and they will see them on their end, but you never see them, so you don't react.
That's what's up. Now you mentioned a second ago, stay off Facebook. Why stay off Facebook?
Oh, when I'm talking about comic book creators, no, first of all, I actually haven't been that active on Facebook for a while because it's very toxic for Black women that are in the geek space. And I got tired of explaining that, and I got tired of fighting people. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to take a step back here. And I've been invited to, I've been invited to so many groups that I'm not even there. And it's really funny when I'm invited to a group, because whenever anybody asks to interview me when I say interview, I mean, there's people, I get all these requests and we filter them now, but there's some people that I consider, and then we got to chat. Like, did they sit up and call a bunch of Black women names? And did they, drag, are they, homophobic? Are they this? Are they that? Because that, not only do I not want to support that, that would be bad for the brand.
Right.
So there are people that have put me in their groups and then will be on another stream and drag me and not realize that Facebook has a search button. And I'm like, this you? You want me to come to what? After you call me
Damn. Wait.
So yeah, that's why I spend more time on Instagram and more time on Twitter. And honestly, I just don't have the time to spread myself thin. I use Facebook as a news source now. I don't meaning I'm putting my news there. But I'm not going to be in the comments arguing with you. But when I'm talking to creators specifically, and I'm saying stay off of Facebook, I mean, there are comic book creators who do really good work, but they're only talking to the same 7 brothers in a Facebook group. And they keep yelling like, nobody will buy my comic. Because you're in the same group with other broke comic book creators. Your comic is about children. Go to a children's book group and talk about your book. Instead, you want to keep talking to the same people who keep arguing you and tell you that you ain't nothing. You're just a glutton for punishment. Get out, go to another platform, and start showing everybody what you got. Because the problem is the algorithms on all of these platforms give you more of what you click on. So you keep fighting with people and you keep using certain words, they will give you more of that. And I've been saying this for years. And then this year, Facebook proved it when all that big dossier came out on how they find you and how they track you on the app. They know exactly what you're talking about. And you keep giving them more of the same. So you keep saying, Black women hate me, Black nerds hate you. And you just keep getting more comments and more brothers and people who agree with you. As opposed to, I don't know, going to Twitter where most of the Black women nerds are and TikTok and actually talking to us. That's the part that's hilarious. So the algorithm will give you more of what you ask for, kind of like the universe. Like what you keep saying will start happening. So if you have a book, and the other thing is the book industry and the comic book industry are merging. So if you have a volume, if you have something that is over 50 pages, over 100 pages, that's a book. You can't tell a parent that's got a Black child that this is a graphic novel based on this, that, and the other, and it's been sold in comic book shops. She don't care. Is it on digital? Can I put it on my iPad? Can I get this child to shut up?
Bad.
No, but I'm saying, like, we overthink it. Like, I want to be in a comic book shop. Why? They don't want you. Get your book in front of the person. If you have a book that's made for children, and every comic book creator I talked to, I was like, stop making comics with mechs in them. There's 457 versions of Iron Man out there, and I'm tired. Make a book for children. My niece, who's 3, has barely anything. Make comics because parents need books. They need to give their children something to read.
Absolutely.
Nobody ever wants to do that. They're like, no, I want to be in the Glyph Awards. And I'm like, okay, be in the Glyph Awards. But you know what? You could also make money.
Oh, she meant mechs, like mechanicals.
Mex, yeah, MECHX. No,
yeah.
Not Mexicans. Please do not misquote me. MECHS, like Gundam, like
we don't
Iron
get
Man,
canceled.
like.
We don't want to get canceled.
No.
You don't need that.
No
kind of
problem, gentlemen. No problem. Now I'm going to answer some of these questions that came in. So,
yes.
Felicia, did I answered yours? Mandela, what's the number one thing people should think about if they want to do similar work like yours? Right now, trust me, right now, people are using fourth quarter money to find out who they gonna pay for Black History Month and Women's History Month next year to host things, to talk about things. But what they need is proof. So I could say right now, hey, Steve is a great person to use. And they're like, great, but I can't find a website. Or when I go to their page, there's just pictures of their dog. What do? I can't just say that. I can't take this to my people. So one of the things I tell people is, like, if you don't have a reel, have a page. Like, I have a work with me page, which at least has links on it where people can see a bunch of my stuff. But you should have a reel. I'm redoing my reel. I know. You need to have a YouTube channel, Instagram, something where you can give somebody something to look at. And yes, Regine says they can actually do both glyphs, money, kids, books, but they're not thinking that far. Yes, you're right. They're not. They're just thinking about so-and-so said that I wasn't crap. And I'm like, that, who cares?
Right.
They were either having a bad day or they don't know you. Like, let it go. Let it go. But when it comes to doing the work, there are people now that actually have the ability to hire. Before, diversity was hard for them to push. Now, publicists, managers, directors, everybody has a mandate. Get some Black people in here, get some Latinx people in here, get some Asians in here, but people aren't ready. So, like, when someone says on Twitter, like, hey, we're looking for writers to do such and such and so and so, where's your writing? If you don't have a blog, or a website, start a Medium page, like, now. Like, start an Instagram page and a Medium page now. Start putting your writing. I don't know what to write. Have you written anything before? Have you posted things on other sites? Do you have Instagram posts that are longer than 300 words? Copy paste. They won't know. Put a nice little header on it. Give it a title. Start posting somewhere so somebody knows that you do what you do. The other thing that I used to do on my site, and I still do it, is I tag everything. Every single image that goes out either has the Blerd Gurl or the word blerd in it. For a while, when you Googled blerd, I came up in the first page because nobody else was using the term. Now there's a lot of us, so I'm not the only one, but which is lovely. I'm not complaining at all. But, like, your name should be attached in tagged in everything, in the metadata of everything. Because the other thing that publicists are doing is when they Google you, they want to see that you exist. Even if it's not on a website, they need to see if you're on Twitter, if you're on Instagram. And here's the thing. If you spend your time fighting on Twitter or fighting on Facebook all day long, guess what they're going to see when they go to your site?
Big facts.
So you got to bring the fighting down to a certain level and start talking about what you do.
That's what's up.
Oh, Blerd Official, yes. Coloring books is a huge missed opportunity. There are people right now that are on TikTok that are making coloring books on Canva and selling them on Amazon and making thousands of dollars a month because parents need them, kids, adults need them. Adult coloring books are a thing. Like, I'm just going to chill out and I'm going to color because people are into journals and stuff like that.
You'd be surprised how many adults are sitting there at the 9 to 5 waiting for the next call to come in. And they're coloring.
Exactly. Felicia Day said, how do you define quality comic book world building? Any current faves that hit your definition? Oh, goodness. Okay. So quality comic book world building, I feel I can always tell when somebody has thought through a 6 or 10 issue arc. It's very clear. because the story doesn't drop at the end. There's that grab at the end of the issue, and I'm like, ooh, what happens? I'm trying to think. I'm reading a bunch of things right now. I like Excellence by Brandon Easton and Karen Randolph. I like We Only Find Them When They're Dead by Al Ewing. That's a gorgeous book, by the way. I'm reading a lot of Black Panther for a project I'm working on. And that's like older stuff. I read old and new. Hellboy.
Have you checked out White?
Yes, I actually have White up here. It's so funny. This is the weird thing. I got White way back because I was a Kickstarter supporter. So I got it ages ago, and I forgot when it dropped because I read the whole thing, and I was like, "Oh, wait, that's out now. I should probably say something."
Right.
But Black, White, all those are really good.
Yeah.
There are, and I also like larger ones. There's Johnny Christmas is a brother that is very underrated, and people miss him. And he's been writing comics for years. And he's got a series called Tartarus. And I need Tartarus to be a Netflix series. It is that expansive. It is
wow.
Like Lord of the Rings meets. I'm sorry, not Lord of the Rings. It's like Game of Thrones meets Expanse meets. It's just really, really big. And the protagonist is a Black woman, and I'm just like, it's incredible. It's funny. A lot of mainstream artists and white readers know Johnny Christmas, one, because of his name, but two, because he wrote a book with Margaret Atwood called Angel Catbird, which is also very good. But his indie stuff that's got his mark on it is stunning, and nobody's reading it because he's this weird niche where he's a Black writer that a lot of white people know, but hardly any Black people know. And when I interviewed him, I'm like, dude, we got to get you another publicist.
Right?
She's doing it wrong. There was a couple other questions in here. Who do you think is underrated in upcoming Black creator? Well, I just named one.
Right.
I don't think Johnny Christmas is really up and coming, but he is really good. Nicholas Draper Ivy, I've been a fan of for years, and he's doing Static. I hope it doesn't put him off for comics forever because it's been a struggle for him, but it's coming out great. And he does a lot of manga stuff with Nora Caesar. Stephanie Williams, who wrote her own indie comics and things like that, and is now writing for Nubia. Keep your eye on her. She's got a lot of amazing stuff coming out.
Good God. Yes.
Tinkbird, the two different people are Tinkbird, the person is Johnny Christmas that I was talking about. Yes. Felicia Day, Deadly Class isn't new though. That's the thing that's weird. Deadly Class has been out for a really long time, and it's coming to an end now. But Deadly Class is not new. So when that's the funny thing, because people tell me, oh, I need a new comic to read. Usually I ask, what are you into? Because there's so many comics that exist that people don't know about. Like, what I got up there? 100 Bullets. Like 100 Bullets is an amazing series, but there's a lot of people that don't know about it because they weren't following the comic then. And then I'm trying to think. I actually have artists that I like that aren't necessarily doing comics yet. And I already named some of the writers. Giga, and there's another guy that y'all need to read who is amazing. But I'm looking up the name of his latest comic, so hang on one second. But there's a lot of people that I actually do put people onto that come through my my column that I think are amazing. There's another really interesting comic that I didn't think I liked, but I really like, called Blue Flame. And it is this actually isn't Black people. Christopher Cantwell wrote this, and it just kind of came out of left field. And Blue Flame is basically, it's a story about a man. It's a story about a guy he's a blue collar superhero.
Okay.
He does have a power, but he's sort of like a D-list superhero. You know, if this was My Hero Academia, he'd kind of be on the gear core, you know. But him and his crew, they get attacked, and he's the only one that lives. But his consciousness, so I don't want to say it splits, but part of him is also sort of in another universe trying to figure out how to save Earth, because there's an entity that has chosen him to be the people that basically represent Earth and explain to us why we shouldn't destroy you. So he's got these two different worlds that are sort of existing, and it's a fascinating read. So it's something else that I'm a fan of. Yeah, Deadly Class has been out for a really long time.
Yeah, my wife actually started Deadly Class herself just recently. And she's been loving it.
Oh yeah, Harriet Tubman, Demon Slayer, of course. David Crownson, I saw him in the chat. Also, anything by I love the whole Athura series, Niobe Shia's life, and everything from Stranger Comics. I'm also a fan of some horror, not totally horror, but there are some horror comics, and this is the problem. There's so many of our comics that don't get extended series. Like Excellence is a rarity, because most of us don't get past the first 6 or 10 issues, because we, as like just Black folks who are newer comic book readers, don't know how to keep going and pre-ordering. It's just not something that we do. We like, oh, we like it and we just want to buy it, and we assume that the next one's just going to be there, when, you know, so many of these comics get canceled. But I like there. Do you remember the guy that wrote Your Black Friend? Your Black Friend was written by Ben Passmore, and Ben is hilarious. But Your Black Friend has won several awards, and it basically is exactly what it sounds like. But it's an indie comic that is basically talking about the fact that stop asking us stupid questions.
I'm gonna have to get this one. I'm looking at it right now. I'm definitely gonna have to get my hand on this one, because if these pages are as hilarious as I think they are, yes.
Yeah, that Ben Passmore and Ezra Clayton Daniels. Okay. Ezra Clayton Daniels wrote they wrote a story together called Bottom Feeders, which is a horror comic. That was kind of esoteric. Ezra Clayton Daniels wrote an amazing story called Upgrade Soul, and I actually got a chance to write the afterword for it. And he's also now writing on Doom Patrol. But awesome! Ezra Clayton Daniels wrote this story about this elderly couple, a Latina woman and her husband who is Black, and she's a scientist and he's an artist. And they take their life savings and they put it into this, what they think is sort of youth technology. It's going to de-age them. And what it does is it inadvertently clones them. And their clones are really, really deformed and crazy and creepy looking. But they have the intelligence, like they're super intelligent and super strong. So it turns into this story about who has the right to house a soul. Wow. And it's a fascinating, the story is so good. He was like the second person to win the Dwayne McDuffie Award. And the story is fascinating. But what's really funny about Ezra is he's mixed and he's so light, he's passing. So whenever he comes into something, people are like, who is this white man who wrote? And it's hilarious. I have to tell people all the time, like, he's Black, y'all. Calm down. His mama's genes just kicked in. But it's a really, really, really good story. And it's called Upgrade Soul. And I think you can get it on Comixology. I know the one where my afterword is in, I think you have to get that off of Amazon, because I think it's like a hardcover, but you don't have to buy that. Yes, he gentleman has that Ship of Theseus feel. Absolutely. So yeah, my stuff goes from like the sublime to the ridiculous. What I'm reading.
Yeah, but I think that's how comics should be. We definitely should not have a box to put ourselves in when it comes to reading comics, because comics, they're so far reaching nowadays, it's ridiculous.
Oh, Ronnie Gorham has another question. What advice? I didn't even realize I could put the question on the screen. See, I'm so tired. Ronnie Gorham, what advice can you give on posting daily content on your social media platforms? Okay, Ronnie missed my earlier thing. Ronnie, I ain't never there. I schedule everything. Okay, so your best friend, I actually used to tell everybody to use Hootsuite. Now I tell everybody to use Later. And my, so the two things that I will tell you that you should do are use a scheduling platform and come up with things that you want to talk about, that you just want to post, and conversations that you want to have. So for instance, I got a lot of my followers on Twitter came from me live tweeting shows. So we would find our tribe, like we would all show up for Black Lightning, or we would all show up we definitely showed up for Watchmen. We would all show up for Lovecraft Country. Like we would show up for these shows and use this hashtag. We'd all talk amongst ourselves. And then what I started doing was adding a little value to my tweets. So you know how Lovecraft Country always had a little bit of history in their episode. So I would like, hey, that looks like a image of Bessie, Bessie Smith, rather. Let me go get an image of her. That looks like W.E.B. Du Bois. Let me explain where this comes from, So we would have these great conversations after the show on Twitter. And that's how I actually got a lot of my followers organically. I've never paid for followers, which is why Twitter has so many and no other platform has as much. But so in terms of posting, and then here's the thing. People think they have to post like all the time. If you have a comic or a book, or I don't care if you're selling T-shirts, find a way to make it relevant. But people also forget the social part of social media. You should be on there having conversations. So sometimes I turn around and I just go into my followers' post and I just respond like, hey, 2 days ago that you said you got a puppy. Where is the puppy? We need to see pictures of the puppy. Like, right. It's the social part of social media that people forget. They're like, well, I only have 300 followers. That's nothing. I'm like, if 300 people showed up at your apartment, that would mean something.
Right.
So turn around and talk to the 300 people. You have followers that are right there, but nobody ever turns to talk to them. They just are trying to get the next thing. It's like being on TikTok and only looking at the For You page. After you follow people, you got to go to the other tab for the people that you're following and spread them. Yep, exactly. But nobody ever does that. They just, Felicia Day, yeah, Sendable is great too. But the point is, find something to schedule. And then for those of you who are trying to maintain blogs and maintain posts, what I say is start a newsletter. Start a newsletter, and every week come up with the topic for the newsletter. And the newsletter could even be in Patreon. Well, no, you want to have two different topics. So let's just say newsletter. So start a newsletter, and I don't mean a Substack. I mean a regular whole newsletter, and come up with a topic. Come up with two topics, right? For 400 words on one thing, and 400 words on something else. Then take that newsletter and turn it into two blog posts, or turn it into one blog post. But then those 2 400-word paragraphs you wrote for the newsletter that you sent out. And by the way, don't ever worry about putting what's in the newsletter on your blog. It's rare that people read both. It's very rare. Take the 2 paragraphs. One paragraph is an Instagram post and the other paragraph is another Instagram post. Just get 2 different pictures. And take those 2 400-word paragraphs and break them down into, 200-word Twitter posts. And now you have 8 Twitter posts. You wrote 1 newsletter, and now you have 2 Instagram posts, or 3, and a Facebook post, and 4 or 5 Twitter posts. Stop doing so much work. Nobody's reading all of your stuff. And I tested this. I posted the same paragraph with different images at different times one week on Instagram, and did nobody notice. Not a one. Wow. Same time. I even took 3 sentences and put them over on Twitter. Nobody noticed. The other thing that people don't understand is, for every 1 piece of content I create, I spend 20% of my time creating content and 80% of my time promoting it. Y'all are doing too much work. You're kicking out all this work and you're writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. And like, nobody's saying anything. No, you're not giving anybody a chance to. And I will post one tweet and I will post it. I'll rewrite it 3 or 4 different times. And they've got AI to do this for you now. There's apps that can just rewrite your stuff 2 or 3 different times with different images. Nobody knows. So let's say somebody comes on my show. This is one thing I really like about Twitch. One thing I like, somebody comes on my show, I pull 2 or 3 clips, I close caption them, I put them up on Twitter, I'll run another one on Instagram, and now I'm taking chunks of the interviews and putting them over on YouTube too. But 1 2-hour show or 1 1-hour interview, I'll recycle about 15, 20 times. You'll never know.
Wow.
Because you'll talk about 4 or 5 different things in an interview.
Right, you will.
Like you could take like the comics that we talked about and make that a post. You take the audio for it, turn it into an audiogram, put that on Instagram and put that up on TikTok. Like nobody knows. There's too much content for any one person. And every single day, somebody new is finding you. There are people in here who've never heard of me. They might not be commenting, but it happens. It's just, there's people that have every day you're going to find somebody new. So never worry about repeating. When it's bad to repeat is when you're using the same image and the same copy over and over again, because then the platforms will flag you as spam. So you've got to reword it. You've got to, pull things apart. But yeah, I spend way more time repurposing my content than I do creating it. And I took a month off of social media in September, and not a single person noticed. Now, granted, I had help. I had some people that I was able to like have cut stuff for me and stuff because I had to like go write a book. I can't talk about the book yet, but you don't need a team to do that. If you plan it, you can. If you want to take a month off of social, you can plan it. You can just come up with something to post every day so somebody knows that you're there. And you don't have to respond if you don't want to. Come back a week later. Try it. Take a week off of social media. See if anybody notices. They're out. They're busy. They're trying to, So people are overthinking it, thinking they've got to. There are people out there like, if you're not putting 17 TikToks out there. Now, granted, I have to lean into TikTok more. And I am. But like, there's people like, if you don't post 6 or 7 times a day, you are not, really ready to grind. And I'm like, okay, but I'm a Black woman. Y'all are going to ignore me either way. So what I try and do is find particular times. If you Google like quirky holidays, there's National Cookie Eating Day. There's National Popcorn Day. There's National Walk Your Dog Day. Just post on those days. You'd be surprised how many followers you'll get because you have like this quirky, really interesting content. And people will stick around and look at the stuff that you do, but quit working so hard. Yes, Felicia, that is evergreen content. You're absolutely right.
That's what's up. This has definitely been a huge, huge learning experience for me and for dozens other I can see here in the chat. If you are just joining us, this is DYSG Live, invading the space of Karama Horne, the Blerd Gurl. She's in she opened the door by mistake. She didn't know I was coming in, but here we are.
Oh, the other thing I do that I didn't, and this is something I teach my clients to do, and I work with a lot of people in doing, is batching content. And it's hard for them to see that. But batching is amazing when you're trying to do an event or a launch, like a Kickstarter. I do Kickstarter. I've done Kickstarter coaching, and it boggles people's minds when I say this, but you need 12 weeks to have a successful Kickstarter. So the people that aren't famous, that aren't already blown up on social media, that already don't have a lot of followers, the ones that have to grind to get their numbers, it takes like 4 weeks for people to pay attention to what you're talking about and for anybody to latch onto it. So I tell people you need the 4 weeks before you launch your Kickstarter to talk about the fact that the Kickstarter is coming and introduce people to who you are, so that when the Kickstarter starts, that's the middle of your campaign. And when the Kickstarter ends, you only have that just last week to say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. For those of you who still want to support, go here. And you have another PayPal or something set up so people can pre-order for the book that's coming out. But people try and like, I launched my Kickstarter, help. No. you're doing it wrong. You have to, if you have no followers, it's going to be too hard. You're putting way too much pressure on yourself to try and make those numbers, especially Kickstarter, which, you know, at the end, you don't make your, if you don't make your money, you don't get anything. But I don't coach everybody. If somebody comes to me and says, I'm going to do a Kickstarter for $3,000, I go, don't do it. Just go get a loan from a bank. Get a business loan. If you're already a business entity and you have a comic, go get a $3,000 loan and just do a pre-order. Right. It doesn't make any sense to do a Kickstarter for $3,000. Doesn't. I don't do Kickstarters for less than 10 G's. Easy. Because you can make 10 G's in about a week. With Black people that they're trying to push right now, and stop doing Kickstarter every year for the next chapter. You pay attention to Roy Okupe, who has done consistent Kickstarters, and that's his business model. Roy Okupe has, you know, XO Legend of Wally Williams and Malika and everything. And every single one of his Kickstarters, beautiful, thick, colorful, well-made books, 100 pages each. People, like, wow. I will pay $25 for 100 pages. I'm not paying $25 for 12.
Right. Big facts. Big facts.
No, and this is for those of you who are interested, this is the kind of stuff that I do talk about some of this in my Patreon, but starting the new year, and this is, nobody really knows this, so yay, exclusive. I'm coming up with a name now. I wanted to call it the Blerd Gurl University, and then somebody took the Blerd University, and somehow I'm mad. But it might still might be TBGU or something, because I can see the logo, right? And it's basically going to be teaching people how to use social media, teaching people how to do what I do, the apps I use to edit, the stuff I use to be on social, even how to get people to help you and how to, you know, work with people. I'm going to be doing all that stuff through my Patreon.
And I will be pre-enrolling, just so everyone knows. I have already pre-enrolled. I gotta fill this FAFSA out and wait for it to come back.
What I'm thinking of doing, and I can look. I'll use your chat right now as a forum to ask this question. Like, don't you hate it when you, like, somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to show you how to do something," and then you get there, and it's like a half hour of them talking about how amazing they are, and then when they get to the end of the thing, it's like 5 minutes, but now you got to pay $1,000 for my course. I hate that. So right. My thing is, you don't have to join my Patreon if you don't want to. If you join the Patreon, you can get access to the stuff at a certain level. You'll be able to get access to everything. But if you just want to, like, buy a course or take a one-off, pay me, like, for a one-off thing that I'll do, like, I will do lives that'll be private, but I'll, you know, do things where I'll answer people's questions and stuff like that. I just think that's so much more effective. And then people write down their questions and they ask them right there, or they come back into the Patreon or the Discord with their questions. I just think that's more effective than, here, let me put you in my 35 email funnel, you know. Hey, Temple Girl, thank you so much. Yeah, she's in my Discord. But hey. Yeah, we're just having a good time right now. I ain't done much business stuff in there. But at the top of the year, there's going to be another level if people want to join. It'll be, good night, Mike. Thank you. I'm definitely going to be doing more stuff like that, because everybody in here can be making money doing this. It's just that they're overthinking it. You really are overthinking it, because I will meet somebody, like, I'm doing a project right now with AMC Plus, and y'all will see that go up next week. And my thing with AMC Plus, they asked me the beginning of the year maybe to do a couple posts, some paid posts. So I do that kind of stuff. And I said, sure. I said, but you know what? I have this YouTube channel, and I have a series I call Stream This, where I talk about stuff to watch on streaming. So I could just do a video, but it's going to cost you this. And they were like, okay, well, let's see. And I did one, and it did okay, because they didn't give me access to that much stuff. And I did another one, and it blew up. And they were like, all right, let's do this. And so now, you know, but I convinced them. Most of the people that are in the position to help you and pay you to do a lot of this stuff that I do, they're making it up too, because there's these new diversity programs and these new inclusion programs, and they don't know what half of us can do.
Right.
But if you're like a fan of LARPing and it's National LARPing Month, your ass should be on every single website about LARPing, because they know everybody's looking for a black LARPer. I'm not even making that up. They really are.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Because LARPing is one of the most under celebrated fandoms, I would say. Now, as a columnist, it's often your duty to produce pieces that not only inform but also kindle thought and or emotion. Do you think within the Blerd community that written pieces are better when they feed the mind or provoke an appetite?
Both. You need to write the article to promote the mind, but when you push it onto social media, you need to feed the appetite so that they go and click on it and read it.
Gotcha.
So, and I don't mean make it clickbaity, but you got to make it interesting, because just showing up and saying I wrote a thing once on a Tuesday at 12 is not going to do it.
True.
You need to find within whatever you're writing, you need to find 3 or 4 quotes that you can pull that are bites. Like something I do on all my videos is I have a cold open. So it's like 3 seconds of somebody saying something crazy or something interesting. And that I use on social media, that I use on Twitter, that I use on Instagram. If it's short enough, I can use it on stories or something. I mean, now Reels is sort of the thing. But, and then I think that the problem that I've had, and I'm struggling with this now, when I went from, it's so funny because 2019 was the first year that I didn't edit full time. I did this full time. And then 2020, all of my gigs went away because of the panorama. And so it's been a struggle trying to like, okay, because I don't really have the editing clients anymore, but I'm not, and I don't really want to go back to that, but trying to pivot a little and make this a thing. So when everything sort of turned off last year, that's why I started the Blerd Gurl Live, because it was this experiment that I wanted to do. And now that I have a focus on it, it's going to turn into its own thing. But I think when we're writing and we're creating, I know for me, my voice, the voice that I used to write with as the Blerd Gurl has been muddled a little bit, because when you're writing, like when I write for Nerdist or when I write for Sci-Fi, you're pitching things that are big in pop culture, putting your spin on it. But you still get edited. They're going to edit you.
Right.
And so I think sometimes I've decided, and I've been going back and forth, like, do I put it on my Patreon? It's like a newsletter. Do I do it on my site? I'm figuring it out, but I'm slowly, you'll see more of my voice in 2022. That's not paid. That's just me yelling about a thing.
Cool. Looking forward to it. Absolutely. Now, no cap whatsoever, but one of my favorite podcasts ever was The Radical Geeks. You and fellow journalist and podcaster Angelique Roche,
yes,
who I had the opportunity to speak with one day, but then my son broke his arm. We had to cancel the whole thing.
No.
But, you know, we've talked, and we're going to reschedule that at some point soon. Camaraderie in business can be helpful or hurtful. What makes the Radical Geeks friendship work?
Well, it's so funny because we haven't been able to do it since we moved to California, but it's just because we got super, super busy. And
right.
But it was fun when we did it, because we used to do that in the basement of Anyone Comics, which was a lot of fun, because then we could sell people, we could get people to buy the comics that were in the shop, and we loved support. She was my neighbor for a while, so it was great. We just go to the comic shop and hang out all night.
Cool. And
I miss doing that. I think the problem in the Blerd community and the geek community, and people don't know this, I promote people all the time behind the scenes. I've even promoted people who hate me. There are some women that absolutely cannot stand me, but have written good stuff, and I promoted them. I've been like, listen, nobody else has a book out like this. You should interview them. It won't be me, but you should do it. I think one of the thank you, Regine. I think one of the things that is a misnomer, that the whole crabs in the barrel thing, like, I don't like, you're not going to find me really bringing, especially publicly, you are not going to find me bashing anybody else unless you see them bashing me, and then I'll be like, y'all, don't make me do this today, because again, everybody's looking at my tweets, so I gotta be careful. But behind the scenes in DMs, I'm gonna tell you what. But I really think that there's this misnomer that there's not enough space, and I can tell you for a fact that that's not true, because every time I say I can't do something, I have somebody like, listen, do me a favor, can you recommend anybody? Like, we need somebody. So they are looking for Black folks to do, they meaning mainstream. I think the issue that we're having is working with ourselves. So like when I'm looking for sponsorships, which I will be taking again for the show in the new year, I reach out to not necessarily Black comic creators, but Black people who are small business owners that are like, have jewelry or things, something that is not necessarily geekdom, but if it is, it's great. But I'm trying to support small businesses also, because something that you won't see me do on my site, like I will take sponsorships and ads for comics and things like that. But it really depends on the comic, and people get confused by that. And I said, I can't just put my name behind something. There's research. So your comic could be good, but you over here like being homophobic or being like misogynistic or something, I don't want to have my name associated with that. So it takes work. Like I can't just, hey, I'm gonna, I gotta vet people. So
right.
But in terms of doing what I do, like whether it's hosting or talking about comics, you can start where you are. But what people don't necessarily want to do is niche down. I see websites right. And it's like, I'm doing comics and I'm doing, the new Netflix stuff that's all live action. And then I'm doing this over here that's hard. And I'm doing that. And you're running yourself ragged. I was very intentional with, I'm only talking about this. And here's the thing. I never said I wouldn't talk to white people. I talk to white people all the time. And I've had white people on the show.
Right.
But what it is when you're intentional with your niche, no one questions it. They know that if I'm going to talk about Black people doing something in genre, I know Karama gonna have somebody. If she can't help me, she knows somebody. Right. And I realized that I had more value, not just writing, but I had also more value being a resource. So I will actually be paid to help find other people. Because I got tired of that, people that like asking me to make spreadsheets in my sleep. I'm like, no. That's a consultant fee. But the thing that I tell people all the time is they're like, well, how do you get more Black women in these spaces? Or how do we get more fill in the blank in these spaces? I tell people all the time, stop asking, roll deep. So if somebody says, hey, we'd like you to host this panel about, I don't know, let's say LARPing again. Say, wonderful. Do me a favor. Do you mind if I include this person on the panel? Because they're doing they do fabrications and they're amazing. And I think people need to know about them. I don't know that many people who would say no to that, especially if they have a website, a business, they have they have some visual representation of the stuff that they do and it's presented well. I can't see anybody having a problem with that. But people don't think like that. I used to say that about with the Schomburg. The Schomburg is sort of switched over now because there's new people running it. But there were some sisters that were like, I'm trying to get into Schomburg and it's really hard. And it's hard because people are grandfathered in from the year before. They might still do that, I'm not sure. But I remember being able to get one sister in and I told her, I know you paid for a full table, but split it with somebody else. Split it with another sister. And when she gets in, I need the two of you next year. When you get your table separately, split them again and bring another sister in. Stop asking and start bringing. So if there's something that I do, I will tell somebody like, listen, I know you want to meet somebody, but they only approved me. I can get you in as my assistant or my producer or something like that. If you can just go in with that name, I can get you in the room. But people, no. I want to be, I'm as good as you. I'm not going to do that. I'm like, okay, I'm just trying to get you the meeting, but all right. So I think, and then the other thing is working for free. Now, I'm not saying everybody should work for free, but there's this lie that is going around social media saying like, well, I'm not going to work for free ever. And I'm like, okay, but nobody knows you. there is no proof that you can do what you say that you can do, and you want them to pay you a full-time salary, it's never going to happen.
No.
Ever.
Not at all.
You need to at least have for yourself done something for free. So we have an example of, I can do an interview. I can write a story. I can do the research. I can do the editing. I have so many people who reach out to me like, oh, I would like to edit for you. I'm like, great, send me a reel. And I'm like, are you kidding? Have you ever seen anything that I've done? Like back in the day when I would edit a lot and I was looking to edit on more gigs, I would do fake commercials or fake music videos and things like that, so I could edit in the style of what I knew the person that I was trying to get a job with was doing.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody thinks like that. So here's the thing. I'm not saying that you can't do stuff for free. That you should do everything for free. You shouldn't. At some point, you got to stop doing that. But I will say that no one was going to hire me as a journalist to talk about geek stuff like 6-7 years ago. They just weren't going to do it. But now it's all about reach. So I was able to build my social media up. So now I have people that, because here's the thing. A lot of people saw the interview that I did with Keanu Reeves about his comic book Berserker.
Yes.
Sci-Fi would never have given me that. I highly doubt I would have ever gotten that if they came to him. But what people don't know is I don't know Keanu's people. I still don't know them. I don't. But I know Boom Studios. And I know the publicist at Boom Studios. And I have, for years, interviewed and discussed and highlighted comics out of that indie company that nobody was talking about. And that publicist remembered me. So when it came time to, we need somebody to talk to Keanu Reeves about this project. Cameron, would you like to talk to him? Hell yes.
Big facts.
And then when I went to Sci-Fi, because people don't realize this, I'm not employed by Sci-Fi. I'm freelance. Everything I write for them, I have to pitch to this day. They don't give me stuff. I have to bring to them. They have to okay it. So when I pitched them, I was like, of course they're going to run it. They're not going to turn down Keanu Reeves. But I still had to pitch them. And I had to tell them, like, I'm going to do the video, but that they wouldn't let me cut the video. They said, no, we have to do it ourselves. And I'm like, okay, but I actually used to cut for you. But it's a whole different team now. They don't know that. So, yeah, and I didn't get paid for that. But you bet I took that, and when I said I didn't get paid for that, I get paid for the video interview, but I got paid my rate for writing the article for the column. So what I do a lot is I will get interviews for outlets. So the interview, if I'm writing an interview and it's only 800 words or 1,000 words or 1,200 words, that interview can be like 20 minutes. I talk to most people for an hour. And then what do I have? Content. And that content ends up as a podcast, as exclusive content on Patreon, as, an Instagram story, as a tweet, as something like that. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. I get free stuff and then I turn it into paid stuff. So stop turning down the free because you're like, nah, they got to pay me. Okay, but they just gave you access to Netflix. What are you doing? Get the free, take it, pitch the article to an outlet. And it's like, oh, well, how do I pitch? Every other day, somebody on Twitter is going, I'm looking for fill in the blank. Also, if you have a particular niche, I interviewed Mustafa Shakir right before Luke Cage season 2, and he played Bushmaster.
Right. And
nobody knew who he was then. And this is when he could walk the street safely. And I'm like, listen, he was my neighbor. And I was like, listen, we're going to do this interview. And I'm going to get you in Sci-Fi. I don't know how. And I had to fight. They didn't believe it was that big of a deal. I had to get Netflix to send them screeners so they could see what a big deal he was going to be. And then I begged them. I said, do me a favor. I know you don't always do this, but one interview, just one, run at the same weekend that Luke Cage comes out. That thing went through the roof. And that footage stays on my reel. So I proved to be invaluable to them. They didn't know nothing about Luke Cage. They didn't know nothing about no Bushmaster. They don't know nothing about any of these characters. So you got to start looking. There are people that want people to report stuff that's interesting and different, but you've got to present it. Like if you happen to know something or someone related to a particular topic, Star Wars Day comes around the same time every year, May the 4th. First Contact Day, Star Trek, comes around the same time every year. You know, find out when, if you're a huge Avatar the Airbender fan, the Last Airbender fan, you need to figure out when. I think Avatar Day is in February. Come up with content for Avatar Day. Let people see you. But yeah, this concept of, oh, I don't do anything for free. I'm like, okay, free gets you in the door, especially as a Black woman. Free gets you in the door. Get paid to stay there.
That's what's up. I like that. That's what's up. Man, I have more questions, but this has been...
It's late.
Oh, no. Damn the fact that it's late. This has just been good. This has been absolutely probably my most phenomenal interview yet. I will definitely say that. So thank you so much for this. To me, one of the things that I have in common with you is that when it comes to our interviews, we had to adapt to the world's current situation with this virus. Even with the Audible, you know, your one-on-ones have been phenomenal. If you're willing to answer, what guest on the Blerd Gurl Live has been your favorite?
Oh, that's tough. Well, I will say this. I will say I can't deny what Orlando Jones did for my podcast. And that was what people don't know is Orlando Jones does a lot of work behind the scenes with sci-fi. Like, he's an executive producer on like a bunch of things. So right. I've known him for a minute, but we've never actually met. It's so funny. And then the panorama happened and I still haven't met him. And I'm like, is this ever gonna happen? He's like, I hope so. So what happened was I had been asking him to come on my podcast anyway. And this is, again, I just happened to be ready.
Yep.
And the whole announcement came out of why he actually left American Gods. And I DM'd him and I was like, this happened in October. It's December. Are you okay? Like, what's going on? He's like, no, I'm not okay. You want to talk about it? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you want to talk about it on my podcast? He's like, let's do it. And I'm like, he's like, when? I'm like, 10 minutes. And I remember telling my boyfriend, like, Chuck, move. And I was like, grabbing my gear, hooking everything up. I was like, I don't know when I'm going to get out of this, but we have this conversation right now.
Big facts.
I had like 4 major questions that I knew I had to ask him, and then everything else was just flow. So I always go in with at least 5 questions, and then I have things that flow from their conversation. But I also have notes on stuff that they've written, whoever written or worked on or whatever, so that I can say, wait, didn't you do that on Flash when you were a guest star? Didn't you have that same problem with your suit? Like, I find really weird, quirky things that I can bring up that are interesting. And people go, how did you find that out? Okay, yeah, let me tell you what else happened. So my goal is to make it sound less like a, hi, what did you like about doing this, being on this show? And more make them sound like a friend, like we're having dinner. Like, listen, I gotta know, that suit looked uncomfortable. You know, and get people to actually happens. But the Orlando Jones thing was, yeah, that was a Saturday morning I'll never forget. So that was a big thing. And then I think my most moving interview actually happened on the Blerd Gurl Live, and it was with Christina Ariel, who hosts Star Trek. Star Wars, the High Republic show. And I didn't know this at the time because I didn't know her schedule. But after the show, she told me it was the first interview that she'd done since all of the racist nonsense of them practically trying to kick her off of Twitter. And people don't realize how bad that got. Like,
yeah, it got pretty bad.
They were threatening her children. She had to get security to go to get her kids from school. The Star Wars fans can be very toxic. The ones that are great, I love, but the toxic ones, and there's toxic fandom everywhere. But Black women catch it. And the really sad part about that thing with Star Trek and all of that horribleness that went down is it was started by a brother. There was a brother that did not like the fact that this girl was going to have this show, and he basically called in the herd of haters, and it spiraled out of control and got racist and Proud Boys and everybody in there. and it was a mess. And so she did my show, and I can tell emotionally it was a lot for her. And I promised her that she didn't have to see the chat. I kept it really, really kept her isolated. Didn't let her see the chat on the screen or anything like that. And everything was lovely, but I didn't realize until afterwards. She said that was a huge thing for me. Like, I never thought I was going to do an interview again. And you made me feel so comfortable. And that meant so much to me, because it meant that not only did the interview successful, but it was genuine. And it makes me feel so good when people are like, oh, I had so much fun. It was so comfortable talking to you. And also makes me feel like, what are other interviews like? Like, what are people saying to these people?
Yeah, it can be wild. I mean, I've watched several interviews before, and just people who I've seen do, you know, the one-on-ones, and it's almost like you're more so interested in making your hot take or making your point, as opposed to having a conversation and making that person feel comfortable. And that's what I try to do every single time I have someone across the screen from me, whether I'm down here or up there, whatever the case may be. I always try to make them feel comfortable and that they can speak their mind freely, because at the end of the day, the reason why I want to talk to you is because I think you're dope. So I want to know everything what's dope about you, everything that you go through, everything that you seen, think about, everything.
But I tell people all the time, and I really appreciate it. I do. But I tell people all the time, like, I tripped over my cat this morning. Like, I am the clumsiest person. There's nothing special about me. There really isn't. Now, I'm not saying that, like, I don't believe in myself or whatever, but, like, I meet people who are like, oh, I can't do what you do. And I'm not like, yes, you can. Trust me. And you can do it better. You can do it better. I need people to do it better because I'm tired. I want somebody else to, like, let me help some other people. I'd like to, I'll produce it, and y'all get up at the crack of dawn and talk to these people.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, Felicia Day, I saw one of your questions. I see you. Just DM me and we'll talk. That's not for this, so I'll just DM me and we'll talk. But I think what you're doing is amazing, and all you have to do is figure out how to codify it. Like, you stay consistent. I struggle with consistency. That's why it looks like I'm all over the place, because I kind of am. I don't know. The only consistent thing I've been able to do is really this Twitch show, and it's been for me to prove to myself that I can show up every week and do something on a platform where nobody knows me and still build an audience, and it's worked. And I'm baby steps. I don't have 1,000 followers yet over there, but the content that I've been able to get out of it and the stuff that I've been able to do is really, really amazing. And so, whatever you're doing, be consistent. Find one platform to be consistent on, and then grow from there. You don't have to be on all the platforms. You don't. And one of the reasons, someone was like, why aren't you on YouTube? I'm like, I'm coming. Just let me get this done.
Right. Got you. Got you.
Trust me. When I hit YouTube, everybody will know. Like, I started growing it now. Like, this 30 days craziness. But if you can also build a team, and when I say build a team, not everybody wants to be on camera. Some people want to write. Some people want to do graphics. Some people want to do social media. I did a lot of bartering this year where people that, like, I couldn't pay, but, like, you want to learn social media? I'll teach you Hootsuite. This is how it works. Now I need you to schedule this for me. Or I need you to take the copy that was in this post and turn it into social media posts, like I was telling you earlier. You want to write? Okay, cool. I need you to do this. But I do want to pay my people, obviously. I don't expect everybody to intern for me, but because, again, I see so many people getting dragged on Twitter for not paying their people. I'm like, yeah, see, I'll just get sleep again and I'll do it myself.
That's what's up. Oh man, if you're just joining us, this is Late Night Hour. This is DYSG Live, and we're with the Blerd Gurl.
Oh, Sukin Okamura, you said consistency is my nightmare. Here's the thing. The way to be consistent is to make a bunch of content that you don't post at first. So, for instance, there's stuff that you're seeing, there's clips that you're seeing on YouTube now that are part of 2-hour live shows I did last year. I don't have to stop and make it and edit it and just say, they're just sitting on a drive and they're done. And when I have time, I edit like 4 or 5 at a time, and then I schedule them out. It's much less stressful that way. So if you're trying to stay consistent and you have a hard time with consistency, this is my problem. I batch a bunch of things and I make them and I schedule them.
Schedule. That's what I've learned tonight more than anything else.
Yeah.
That and that you're clumsy.
Yes. Very. Very. If you hear, we think Blerd Gurl fell off stage. Yep, that happened. Yep.
Yep, I was there. It definitely happened. Now, let's just say Hollywood decides to do the Blerd Gurl movie. Now, you cannot play yourself, but you do have final say-so in who casts as Karama Horne. Who would you decide?
It depends on what we're doing, but it depends on. I don't know what part of my life they want to cover. Let's see. I would say the name that comes to mind is Simone Missick, because people already think we look alike. Simone played Misty Knight on Luke Cage.
Big fan.
And she's very, very sweet. Her and her husband are very, very sweet.
Yeah, Dorian and I share the same birthday.
Oh, really? Regina King, Ronnie Gorham, thank you. Look, I just want to meet and interview Regina King. That's all I want to do. I just want to be in a room with Regina King. So, Regina, if you listen, if your people are listening, I would love to interview you and have a conversation. Because Watchmen alone.
And if you are, just hi, I'm Nick.
I know, right?
GEEK.
You got that.
I love you on 227.
Yeah, gentlemen, I'm sorry, what was the first episode of my podcast for you? I missed that. Young Justice, you can DM me some questions, and I need everybody to not be upset. I don't answer all my DMs right away because I get a lot of DMs. So please don't be mad if I don't get to you for a week, but I will get to you. So yes.
Now, I definitely see Simone Missick playing you. That would definitely be a good look.
I'm a fan of Sonequa Martin Green. She looks nothing like me. It's like Sonequa Martin Green looks like but my spirit person. Like if I could have someone play me, be her. Yeah, it's just it's so funny. I'm trying to figure out like what part of my life they would play because my life has been so crazy.
I got you. That'd be fun though, but definitely if we pick the rise, like if we do the 10 minutes, Orlando Jones, like I can see Simone Missick scrambling, like trying to get pen and pad and paper, trying to cosplay as someone who had this shit together.
Gentleman said Simone Missick, it was the first episode he heard. Oh, okay, cool. They were also my neighbors. That was a really weird thing too. Everybody that was on Luke Cage season 2 lived in Bed-Stuy that year. And I was like, I'm getting everybody on my show. I don't care if I got to stop in the supermarket. This is happening.
That is what's up. That's fate right there. That's all I can say. That's fate right there.
It was
absolutely
crazy. And Simone's now in LA, and I think Mustafa's still in New Zealand or something.
Yeah. Last I saw from him, this was like maybe a year and a half ago, I would say, where he was in North Carolina recording music, and the boy got bars.
He's been he's been in music for a minute. He's been a DJ for a minute too.
Yeah, the boy got bars for days. I was like, yo, I need to hear this like immediately, cause it's that classic boom bap that I love, man. I'm like, yo, you killed this, and I definitely am looking forward to more of his music. Hopefully, we'll get some more of that next year. But this last question here, we all know the worst answer is flight. It's the worst answer. But we can't call ourselves nerds or blerds if we don't ask the most popular question of all time.
Okay.
If you can have a superpower, what would you pick and why?
I say this always. No, and mine's consistent. Night crawlers. I want to bath. I want to leave quickly. I just want to go.
Teleportation. That's what's up.
My superpower thing. I have TikTok up right now that's about this. Like, when people say go big or go home, don't tease me. I'll go home in a minute. The pandemic has been amazing. People are like, aren't you happy to get back to convention? No, I love doing all this from my house. I don't want to go nowhere. So yeah, no, I want Nightcrawler superpower so I can leave quickly. Mid-conversation, somebody says something crazy, I'm out and I'm back at home in my robe in bed. Nope. I will always say that's my favorite superpower. I just want to be gone. I'm not going to sit there and fight with you. I'm just going to leave.
All right, that's what's up. That is what's up. Now, the follow-up is hero or villain.
Hero or villain? Like, would I want to be a hero or villain?
Yeah.
See, this is the thing about heroes and villains. Because think about it. Like, Avengers are a hero, and then they go and, like, level a high rise and kill a bunch of people, and then they make 10 enemies, you know? They make a supervillain. So I think one side balances the other. I would want to be a hero, but I can see how I can accidentally be a supervillain. I can accidentally, like, you know, catch me on the wrong day or don't let me leave. And
yeah.
It's like we didn't let her leave and she made them leave permanently. Like, what?
Right. I say this all the time. I'm gonna definitely want to be a hero, but for my year one story, it's gonna be a lot of self-serving going on.
Right, because think about it. There's always that hero that gets tested. You know what I mean? There's always that thing that it's like where they have that moral thing that they have to, that moral decision that they have to make, and I'll be a hero until somebody like hurts a member of my family, and then I'm like, they have to die. Who? All of them. Like, the family dead, the dog dead, everybody dead. And it's like, what? Now I'm a supervillain.
and the last I checked, you know, you can't run a superhero operation from your living room. You gotta have a lair, you gotta have a cage, you gotta have capital for that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I'm gonna use that power to come up in year one, and then we start saving lives.
There you go.
There's some self-serving going on in year one, but after that, I am here. I got you. Absolutely. Now, we're going to hop into a little bit of this or that. Just some quick firing off here. Just whatever comes to your mind first, and you just answer according to that, and then we will wrap this thing up. Unfortunately, guys, I'm sorry, but she has things to do.
Well, I've kept you long enough, but I'm glad we were able to get it working, even though it's on my channel.
Yeah, I think it was my problem. It was mine. I got to find out why IG hates me this week.
Aw.
I got another live on Friday, so hopefully it works out. So, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, or PC?
PlayStation.
Cool. Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Okay. This is my part I already know. Star Wars or Star Trek?
No, Star Trek. And
yeah.
Star Trek because of Uhura. I think I've said this. First of all, they had black people first.
Right.
And second, I grew up watching Uhura. Like, I think I've said this before. Uhura was the sister that was in the back of the room, universal translator, listening to everything. That's been my whole career. I've been in the room, the back of the room, the entire time listening. Nobody pays attention to me. And they're like, oh, Karen, do you know? I'm like, oh, I know all that. I saw it and I heard it. Here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's my hero.
Absolutely. Great hero to pick, too. Marvel or DC?
This one's tough. Okay, so wait, are we talking about comics or movies?
That's usually the response I get.
Because comics, they kind of run neck and neck.
Yeah.
I would say, I'll do it this way. Comics, I would say it's kind of a tie. Live action movies, Marvel. Animated series, DC all day. Animated movies and animated series, DC all day.
And that is my most common answer that I get. Everyone says the same thing. Movies, Marvel. Animated, DC. Because, like, honestly, DC's animation is it's God tier. It really is.
I just don't know why the animation team can't write the scripts for the live action. I don't know why.
It's like just take that same thing y'all did, but then give it to Grant Gustin. take the same thing you did and just give it to Henry Cavill. That's too hard.
And also, for the love of God, stop having Flash go back. Like, we got Flashpoint. We got it. Stop doing Flashpoint over and over and over again. Barry, stop fixing things. Stop.
Yeah. And what sucks is the new Flash movie is based on Flashpoint.
I know. I'm like, come on, Ezra. You fought all this time to get your own movie, and you're not going to do a new story. That's like getting another Batman movie and seeing Batman's mother's damn pearls. I'm like, she's dead. We know she's dead. Stop it.
There are 3 people whose origin we never need to see again in Hollywood. That's Superman, Spider-Man, Batman. We never need to see their origin.
I don't want to see Batman's mother's pearls. I don't want to see Ben laying there asking for help. I want to see none of this. And Flash going backwards to help his mama. Stop. Just stop.
I don't care if it's the year 3000. Those are 3 people whose origin we never need to see again.
Oh my God.
Because who doesn't know it? Who doesn't know it? Never need to see it again. Dub or sub?
You know, this is funny. I used to be sub all day, and I still like sub. I lean into sub. But now that I have to multitask, sometimes I need to be doing something when the show is on, and I need the dub. But not every dub is good. So my answer is sub, but I do understand dub. I do.
Yes, understood. We all have shit to do, so we definitely have to. When we have time, we can sit and enjoy the popcorn, glass of wine, and watch sub.
Especially when it's a filler episode. Like, I don't need to see y'all at the beach again. Go back to the fight. I'll come back when there's a fight.
Yeah, but if I got the pod to edit that week, yeah, it's definitely dub all day. Your favorite superhero and your favorite villain?
This is tough. Because for a long time it was Nightcrawler. Because he could leave. I think this is tough because it changes. My favorite superhero is actually Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell.
Okay.
And people would not consider. Now, the funny thing is, this is what's funny about this answer. When you really get down into what Ghost in the Shell is, she's actually a supervillain. Section 9, when you think about it, their job is to protect and serve. They're the cops. And they will level anything that's going to harm the government.
True.
So it's really, really funny. I thought that Motoko was a hero for years. And it dawned on me, wait, she's actually with the wrong company. But by the time she got this, the standalone complex, she became like a hero again. So, but for a long time, I would say Motoko Kusanagi. Favorite villain, Death Note. Death Note L. And a lot of people don't think he's a villain, but he kind of is. But Death Note is all about the villains, so you can kind of take your pick. But I just thought the storyline was just fascinating, and that is one manga. I own the Black series, I own everything because I love that series. I don't ask me about Netflix; we don't know her. Just the Death Note that exists in the animated series and the manga, and don't ask me about the musical either. That's ridiculous. But the concept.
Don't do that here.
The concept of what is good and what is evil and who has the right to make the decision about who should live and who should die. And just that is just so brilliantly written. But they were very bad.
Yeah, absolutely. What is your favorite nerd movie or show?
It's funny. People who've been on my show know this. Blood Blockade Battlefront. It's my favorite it's an anime. It's an anime. In terms of live action, it's really hard. I think I like more live action movies than I've liked series. But honestly, season 1 Luke Cage still does it for me.
Okay.
Even
just something like Cottonmouth.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I will say the Cottonmouth was the best hero. When they killed him off and brought in Diamondback, I'm like, no, It should have just been. But when I say I like it, I'm looking back to when we broke Netflix watching it. Because remember, Luke Cage came out before Black Panther. We did not have a black superhero on mainstream television. So it was before Black Lightning, before all the stuff, you know. I'm gonna say in terms of movie though, you know, Spider-Man is the Spider-Verse.
Okay, that's what's
It's
up.
animation again though. I'm having problems with
Yeah,
live action.
I understand. So as far as streaming services, what's your favorite one?
As far as
Streaming services, what's your favorite one?
oh, streaming services.
You know about the Family Crunchyroll account already, but
Yes, I was gonna say
it?
Crunchyroll because I've had it the longest. But and now that Crunchyroll and Funimation are doing the doing the dance, exactly, doing the Dragon Ball dance, their fusion. I'm gonna say that that's probably gonna be my favorite. But I will say that I gotta give Netflix props because years ago, when I was young and we had them little red DVDs, none of us thought that this would be an entire network that would turn TV watching upside down. Like nobody.
And I guarantee you, there's someone in these comments right now saying, DVDs, what are you talking about?
Yeah, they don't know anything about that. That's what I'm saying. Like when I was younger, we had to see those, and the fact that what they've become now, because literally their model is the model that everybody else uses.
Exactly. All right, Kamara. First of all, I want to say thank you so damn much. This has probably been one of my favorite things to just be a part of and watch.
Aww.
Goes. And I know a lot of people in here can say the same thing. But at the end of the day, I want to give you the floor. What would you like the world to know about you and what you have coming up?
Oh, goodness. I have so many things coming up. Okay, so there's a book coming, but I can't talk about what it is yet. Tomorrow, if you're on Twitter around 8:30, I'm doing a Twitter Spaces with one of your friends, Angelique Roche, with Christina Ariel, and with Cheyenne the Geek about doing what we do. There've been like, this came out of a long conversation that culminated with another Twitter thread about why do we have Black women on live stages? And I'm like, we here. So we're going to be doing, I'm hosting the first of a series of Twitter Spaces, and then hopefully a Twitch stream with people who've hosted on main stages, like gotten paid to host at anime conventions, comic book conventions, as well as esports.
Okay,
so
awesome.
That's going to be tomorrow at 8:30. Starting 8:30 Eastern. I know where y'all all are at, but 8:30 Eastern. And then Friday, I am actually co-hosting the Skybound Expo for the holiday. Skybound Holiday Expo. That's on Friday. And I am on the board of VirtuousCon. So if you are going to be joining us for the next virtual convention in February, which you should because Omarion is a thing. Definitely sign up at virtuouscon.com. Virtuouscon.com. Their panels are open. I think we're taking panel submissions till the end of December. You can still vend. There's a virtual vending space that's really cool because you literally go into a space. You'll be in like row this, letter that with a table, and you have a little camera and everything, and you can actually, it's almost like a Zoom, but when people come up to your table, you can actually talk to them and interact with them. So if you have a product, please sign up to be to vend because it's Black History Month, and we're trying to get people seen because now these corporations are now looking at our conventions to see who they can hire. So if you're interested in hosting, number one way to get into hosting is to start hosting. So you need to start hosting panels at virtual events, at live events. And I know dudes who at the beginning of the year, I'm saying dudes, but people who at the beginning of the year look at when all the conventions are and they fill out everything. They sign up for every single panel, to every single convention. They pitch panels all year. And then when they get them, they just find their friends and go, you want to do this? And that's how they get in. So never forget that that's an option. Remember, all of the virtual conventions, including ours, get YouTube channels, get video. So, you know, put in for panels. VirtuousCon is open. And I think that's it. Yeah. Oh, and also, tune in to the Blerd Gurl Live. I'll be up on twitch.tv/TheBlerdGurl tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. I'm going to be playing Gris again. It might make me cry because it's very sad. And then next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern is my regularly scheduled Blerd Gurl live show. And I actually am going to have Prentice Penny, the showrunner from Insecure, is going to be on, along with David Crownton, who was just in here, and Sebastian A. Jones, and Uraeus, who are all doing Prentice is developing comics for HBO now. So
that's what's I heard about
conversation about that.
I heard about that. I can't wait to see that interview. That's going to be amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been DYSG Live. I am Nyx. This is Karama Horne, the Blerd Gurl. We're going to say peace and good night to you all. As always, people, live to play to win to live. We speak geek. Do you speak geek?
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Cameron. I'm going to hit you in a second, okay?
Okay.
All right.